Good evening again, everyone. It's Wednesday, December 1st, 2021. It's 5 p.m. This is a special meeting of the Pacific Grove City Council. Call the meeting to order. Ms. Kendall, would you please take roll?
Yes, sir. Mayor Peak.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Here.
Council members Emilio.
Here.
Coletti.
Here.
McAdams.
Here.
Maduri.
Here.
Tomlinson.
Present. Here.
Thank you. All are present.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
And a
Thank you.
vote, please.
Council members Emilio.
Yes.
Maduri.
Yes.
Tomlinson.
Yes.
Mayor Peak.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Aye.
Council members Coletti
Aye.
and McAdams.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. We have one item on the closed session agenda. It's public employment, city attorney performance evaluation. And do we have anyone from the public wishing to speak to this? I'm not seeing any.
No, sir. I don't see anyone either.
Okay. Well, before we adjourn to closed session, I wanted to remind everybody of an email I sent out earlier to prevent confusion and to start our regular meeting on time at 6 o'clock. The closed session meeting will need to end no later than 5:55. And our city clerk will, if the meeting hasn't ended by 5:55, we'll end the meeting at 5:55. Is that clear? Are there any objections, discussion on that? Mr. Harvey, that's okay with you?
Of course.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much. And,
Mr. Mayor, unless there are any questions for me, my understanding is that you want to have me excused from this session.
This is Councilmember Tomlinson wrote the agenda report, so I'll leave it up to her and the three other council members that called this item.
That's correct, Dave.
Okay, I'm available if you have questions during this proceeding. Just give me a call on my cell. But I'm going to take off, and Michael will do the same. Thank you.
Thank you.
And for purposes of hosting, will that be yourself, Mayor Peak, or city
Yes.
manager? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I'll be sure that everyone else is off the meeting and make you host.
Okay. And we've been recording already, so I don't have to do anything.
Correct.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. We'll start in just a moment. Good evening again, everyone. It's Wednesday, December 1st, 2021. It's 6 p.m. It's a regular meeting of the Pacific Grove City Council. Call the meeting to order. And Ms. Kendall, will you give us a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mayor Peak,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith, Council members Emilio,
Here.
Coletti,
Here.
McAdams, here, Paduri,
Here.
Tomlinson, Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Tomlinson, I do not see as of yet.
All right. Well, she was in the special meeting that just adjourned, so I'm sure she will be joining us in a moment. All right. The first, thank you. The first item on our agenda, remote teleconference, AB 381. There's Councilmember Tomlinson.
Present, sorry.
Thank you.
Ms.
Thank you,
Kendall.
Mayor. Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. Honorable Mayor, members of the council, staff, and members of the public. Again, tonight, Assembly Bill 361 requires the city within 30 days of holding a virtual meeting for the first time and every 30 days thereafter to make findings ratifying the state of emergency. On October 6th, Council approved Resolution 21-029, proclaiming a local emergency and authorizing remote teleconferencing meetings, ratified that resolution on November 3rd for an additional 30 days, and now must do so again tonight. Alternatively, Council may choose to take no action and resume in-person meetings. Staff recommends Council ratify Resolution 21029, emergency teleconferencing, authorizing remote teleconference meetings of all city legislative bodies for the following 30 days in accord with the Ralph M. Brown Act. This concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
Mr. Mayor, I do not see any hands raised. However, I do believe that Mr. Oliver would like to speak on this. And I do see his hand raised. So Mr. Oliver, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, welcome.
All right, this is a timely subject in that I did have my hand raised and I would not have been called on except for the fact that I sent an email to the city clerk earlier today and I went into City Hall to talk about this issue. I was not called on last week, the last city council meeting 2 weeks ago on the 17th, when I had important information to share with the council on the decision that you were about to make, but was unable to. I've stated in my email to the city clerk that I don't know what to call this exactly, but we are going through times right now which are quasi city council meetings, which means that it's not quite being done the way it used to, and that there are glitches in the system. And I've encountered the glitches with respect to having my hand raised and then not being called on.
Your Honor, point of order. This is
That
not
just happened.
It's not appropriate on this topic. If he wants to make this a general public comment.
Mayor Pro Tempore Smith, Thank you for your point of order. Mr. Oliver, will you continue, please?
Thank you, Your Honor. I don't think it's fair that I'm interrupted when I'm speaking.
You're not.
I've been interrupted, Mayor Pro Temp. You take my mind off of what I'm about to say, and that's a technique. That's a very bad technique to be using on the public. We vote for you. So getting back to what I was saying, I'm not in favor of continuing Zoom meetings for the very reasons that I brought up over a month ago when this first happened to me. And there is a record of it. We have copies of the city council meeting in which the issue was addressed on Zoom, but it was never dealt with afterwards. And so here we are 2 weeks after you decided that you didn't want to hear about the tree. So I will give what public comment I have on the tree during public comment. Be sure to call on me because you evidently can't see that my hand is raised. Thank you. You have 31 seconds.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment on this item?
I see no other hand. Yes, Your Honor. Andrew Gonzalez, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you. Is this the public comment? Is this the open public comment or are we talking about a subject? I'm sorry.
This is about remote teleconferencing, AB 381, virtual meetings.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm in the wrong, I'm waiting for the general open section.
Okay, hold on. We'll be there in a couple minutes. Well, more than a couple minutes. Anyone else?
No, the hands are raised, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll bring it back to council. Any council discussion on this item?
Move approval, Your Honor.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay. I just briefly just want to mention that I think the best politics are also conducted face-to-face in person. I'm getting very, very tired of Zoom meetings like perhaps many people are. And come January, hopefully this COVID variant Omicron scare will be dissipating. I'll be asking the city manager to contact the Monterey County health officer for recommendations on how we can meet in person. Just to give a quick rundown, half the cities in Monterey County have been holding hybrid meetings, Salinas in person, and the rest virtual like ourselves. So hopefully we won't be passing this resolution too much more in the future. Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to voice my support for going back in person, although I will support this 30-day extension tonight. But I think it kind of agree with your sentiment of what you just said. So I would look forward to going back in January with the appropriate safety measures addressed by the city manager and the health department. Thank you.
May we have a vote, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams.
Aye.
Councilmember Spaduri.
Aye.
Tomlinson.
Aye.
Emilio.
Aye.
Coletti.
Aye.
Mayor Peak.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Next item is Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember McAdams, will you lead us?
Yes. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have approval of the agenda. And I suggest, to save a few minutes, we move item 11A, which is amending the salary schedule for minimum wage, to the consent agenda. This is an action mandated by state law. So are there any objections from council? If not, may I have a motion?
I move that we approve the agenda with moving item 11A to the consent agenda.
Second?
Second.
May we have a vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Tomlinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Emilio,
Aye.
Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Aye.
Councilmembers Coletti,
Aye.
McAdams,
Aye.
and Baduri.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 to approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you. Next, we have the California Voting Rights Act status review. Our city attorney, Mr. Laredo.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor,
Good
members of
evening.
the council and public and our staff. If we could share screen, see if I can do this time. Are you seeing my slides?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. This was to provide council and the public and staff an overview of the Voting Rights Act. This is a timely topic because we are reading in the press of different agencies that are either redistricting because of the 2020 census or are going to a voting division or voting district form of government and doing districting for the first time. So I was asked to provide an overview of this to provide some background for council's later discussion. So the Voting Rights Act was amended this past year, and it deleted some of the bars to mandating changing to district elections or division elections. The Voting Rights Act before this did still say that election systems have to allow protected classes to be able to influence elections. But some of the criteria that had applied have been made less stringent. So there is a possibility that members of the public can challenge the voting process used by the city or any district. And if a challenge is successful, it can result in an award of reasonable attorney's fees and expenses, and that can be quite expensive. So the question is our elections going to be held by district or divisions or by at large as our present council member elections are held? By moving to a district or division election, that minimizes the risk of a Voting Rights Act challenge. Keeping in mind that if there is a district election, then council members would have to reside within that area, and only people within that area would be eligible to vote for that individual council race. Presently, Pacific Grove elects all council members at large. All city voters can select each member that's running. At the moment, 3 members are elected every even-numbered year and serve 4-year terms. This means that in November 2022, 3 council seats are set for election, and then the following even-numbered November, the remainder 3 seats are set for election. And we have to keep in mind that the mayor is elected for a 2-year term at large every even-numbered year. There's a process to move to voter election districts. The districts have to be formed based upon the most recent US Census data. The theory behind district elections is to allow local neighborhoods and communities to select a single council member. Before creating each voter division, the council would have to hear public input as to different maps, different ways to draw the divisions before the council can finalize election maps. If this decision is made, it's a decision that the council can make based upon federal voting rights criteria, but the council would be doing this by ordinance to draw those maps. Before the maps can be drawn, the public have a role in this. They get to share their views on election area boundaries to best represent the community. This is a process that locally has been undertaken. I know that the Pacific Grove Unified School District is actively contemplating transitioning to a voter division process. And we read in today's paper that Monterey City Council has also changed to a voting division process. One thing that's important to keep in mind, though, is that size does have an influence. Monterey has 28,000 population, and it has 4 council members that are elected at large at the moment. Once it goes to a division process, that 28,000 population will roughly be divided into 4 different voter divisions. Each voter division more or less would have 7,000 population. Our city has a 6-member council plus mayor, and that's set by charter. And the council does not have the authority to change the charter without going to a vote of the people. So if the city were to have a voter division council, that would then have the city population of approximately 15,000 be divided into 6 voter divisions. So each voter division would have a little more than 2,500 individuals. The criteria, if there is a move to voter districts, there is specific criteria set by statute that each voter division has to have district lines that are geographically contiguous. In other words, a common border needs to be shared with the next division. Geographic integrity should minimize the separation of identifiable neighborhoods. The boundaries should use identifiable locations like streets or highways. Geographic compactness is favored so that you don't have that gerrymandered look that we had past congressional districts. And boundaries should not favor or discriminate against a particular political party. So what's redistricting? After the voter districts are formed, those districts have to be redrawn every 10 years after the decennial census. So that's the redistricting process that's going on in some of our sister agencies that had previously gone to districts. Every 10 years, they need to rebalance to make sure that roughly every district, every voting district is roughly the same population. And the concept is that every elected official from that organization would approximately represent the same number of constituents. So what steps are involved? To begin with, the council needs to decide, is this something that they wish to pursue, district formation or not? If there's a decision to pursue this concept, the first step would be to engage an elections system demographer to come up with the different draft voter districts. I did contact the demographer that's being used by Monterey County and other local districts to get an estimate of the cost of those services. Given the size of Pacific Grove, that estimate was between 15 and 35,000. The demographer did tell me that this is their busy season because all the districts that have previously been formed need to be rebalanced, and therefore it's very hard to get on their timetable. She said that a year from now, it'll be a whole different story and the prices will be much less than they are today. She did inform that the process can take 6 to 9 months from her perspective. Public involvement is a mandatory requirement. There would be an effort to publicize the districting process. Community groups need to be notified. Communities of interest for minorities need to be brought into the decision-making process. And so there would be use of local media, workshops, online posting, and a dedicated web page would be utilized for this effort. Finally, if this process is to be followed, then it would be, the districts would be enacted by city ordinance. That separate question as to how many council members should be representing the city, that would have to go to a vote if it's going to be changed from the 6 elected council members. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my prepared presentation. I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you very much. Does council have any comments, or if you could stop sharing that slide, that'd be great. Since this is a short presentation, we'll just take at this point council member comments or questions. I've got one question. So this has been, as I think most electeds know, this has been a process that's been unfolding. The California Voting Rights Act has been unfolding for years, and it's driven by usually law firms issuing a letter to a city or an agency or a board asking them to go to district elections. And then there's a cost involved. The city has to respond. So that's my understanding. That's what happened to the Pacific Grove Unified School District and also to the city of Monterey. And I've heard the number, read the number, $30,000. If you're familiar with that, is that correct? If we receive a letter and we act on it, we still owe them $30,000 or more if we go to court?
Just receiving a letter does not impose a liability upon the city. What would have to happen is that if the city were to reject that letter and not act in a timely fashion, and later it can be shown that the city was motivated by that letter to act, but not in a timely fashion, then there can be an award of attorney's fees. At the threshold, there has to be an assertion that in fact your existing election system disfavors, minimizes participations of minority groups. I'd like to point out that the Unified School District, although it has the name Pacific Grove, its boundary and its population is not identical to the city of Pacific Grove. That has a separate constituency that is larger than city of Pacific Grove. But the point being is that if you do get a letter, there is an opportunity to respond that it would not impose liability upon the city. But if the city did not actively consider it in a timely fashion, then yes, there could be an attorney's fees award and costs for the arguing party.
And just one last question: has, to your knowledge, how many cities have won in court when confronted with a California Voting Rights Act issue?
There are a handful that have prevailed, keeping in mind that the law has changed in terms of the criteria, and the easy targets, if you will, the targets that had elections that at-large elections were manifestly unfair. Those are trying to defend those cases is very difficult. The smaller the organization and the less diverse the population is, it is possible to defend. I'm not recommending that, but it is possible to defend. And I can point to cities that have successfully defended against the challenge.
Thank you. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for this report and update. I have been staying apprised to both the state and county redistricting process, in addition to the city of Marina and the city of Monterey. For residents, if you're interested in the county process, the redistricting commission is meeting actually tomorrow evening via Zoom at 5:30 p.m. All of the meetings are available on the county's YouTube or Facebook page. And if you're interested in the state of California process, you can go to the website wedrawthelines.ca.gov. And I look forward to additional information and more discussion regarding Pacific Grove. Thank you.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I could be wrong on this, but I just don't remember that we asked the public if they had any comments on this issue. Do we not do that for presentations, or do we?
That's correct. We normally don't do that for presentations. However, it's followed pretty quickly by general public comments. So
they can comment then.
Public can comment then, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again, Mr. Laredo. And we'll now go to council and staff announcements. And we'll report out on closed sessions. We have two. Mr. Laredo, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council did have two closed session items at its last meeting, which was November 17th. The two items in the evening that closed session were items 15A and 15B. Those were conferences with legal counsel concerning pending litigation. The first item was Blue Wave Enterprises and John Kramer versus the City of Pacific Grove. And the second was the City of Pacific Grove versus the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. As to both of those items, council provided general direction, was informed of the status of the lawsuit, but no reportable action was taken. I know that earlier this evening, there was a closed session concerning the city attorney's performance. I did not attend that, and I would defer to the mayor to provide that announcement.
All right, thank you. Yes, and the reportable action is that council moved to direct staff to prepare a scoping RFQ, RFP in time for city attorney contract discussions. I made the motion. The second was Councilmember Tomlinson, and it passed 7-0. And next, we'll turn to staff announcements. Mr. Harvey, do you have any staff announcements?
I do not, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. CAP RX on Central Avenue has plenty of the COVID-19 pediatric dose available for ages 5 years old and up. They are doing those only via walk-in, and walk-ins are welcome Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Tomorrow is the Parade of Lights. The parade begins at 6 p.m. It goes down Fountain Avenue and then turns on to Lighthouse Avenue. We will see you there. And lastly, for our community members who are celebrating Hanukkah, this is the third night, and may this Hanukkah bring you and your family good health, prosperity, peace, and light. Thank you.
Councilmember Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor. My announcement is that I'm going to call up the ATC project to receive a fair hearing and then waive the fees and have this meeting for a January special meeting or February, but January special meeting.
Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
Thank you, Your Honor. I too would like to call up the ATC project. On the basis that I believe that the council needs to decide this issue for the city, as it is extremely important for the future of the city, and that would be my reason. And I also would ask that it be placed on an agenda in January. But I'd be okay with the regular meeting as I wouldn't necessarily have to make it a special meeting. Thank you.
Councilmember Kadori.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also, I have a couple of items, actually. I would also like to call the American Tin Cannery project to the council. My view is that the developer has generally been thoughtful in presenting their plans, and I would like to understand why it was actually turned down by the planning commission. Further, I'm also supportive of waiving any associated fees there. The second item is last month we did have a survey for financial reports and how we can improve those reports for the city, and we did receive a reasonable amount of feedback. I would like to thank everybody who provided their feedback. We are looking at those items, and we should hope to bring some improvements on the financial side back to everyone. Thank you.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mayor. I also support calling up the ATC project. There's only one meeting in January, so I think a special meeting makes sense because it's going to be a long one. And I think it will, it's a very important project, and I would like council to be a part of determining the outcome. And I do believe there's precedent for waiving the appeal fees. So I would support doing that.
Right, I'll turn to our city manager, Mr. Harvey. Do you have a date for the hearing of the ATC project?
We don't have it, Mr. Mayor. We do not have a date at this point. No.
Okay. And what's the process for waiving fees? I'm at a loss at the moment. You can help us out. What is our city ordinance in regards to waiving fees on appeal? Because this project has already been appealed and fees have been paid.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. The City Council has the sole authority to set fees and the sole authority to waive fees. If there was a desire to waive fees, I believe that could be entertained at the time that the City Council considers the application at their meeting. That would be an appropriate time to do it versus tonight.
All right, thank you. That sounds like excellent suggestion. I've got, well, one fun announcement. This coming Saturday, Stillwell Holiday in Caledonia Park. Used to be snow in the park, I believe, on Saturday at 10 a.m. this Saturday, and kids should have a good time. And also, this is the time of year where we need boards, commissions, and committee members. And Ms. Kendall, our city clerk, has been diligently collecting applications, and I hope you will consider serving your local government, your community, meet some other people. Hopefully we're going to be back in person pretty soon. You'll get to see people in person. So please think about lots of opportunities. You can contact me or the city clerk for additional information.
One point I'd like to make, Your Honor.
Yes, you're up.
Okay, thank
Coletti.
you. I understand the motivation of some of our colleagues to call this up, but I don't think it's fair to characterize that the Planning Commission did not do a quote unquote fair job. And as council liaison, I think it's my responsibility, because I did attend the hearings, obviously, to point that out. The Planning Commission rather, did what they thought was best. And if council wishes to reconsider it, that is their prerogative. Thank you.
Okay. Now moving on to the next agenda item, general public comment. Ms. Kendall, it looks like we have someone.
We do. Bob Oliver, you have the floor.
Welcome again.
Thank you. I was wondering if we could start by knowing again how many people are tuned into this meeting.
Mr. Oliver, we generally don't answer questions at this time. It's your 3 minutes to speak.
All right. Well, I would request that we were told at some times during the meeting, we just aren't getting an attendance for this. You're not reaching the public this way in these kinds of meetings. Now, sorry, but I have to suggest this is either simply the problem at hand or it's a problem that's created by design. But I've been to city council meetings in Pacific Grove in the past where you seem to always have 100 people or more, 300 people on a busy night. And that's what I always was impressed with about Pacific Grove. Third the population of Monterey and 3 times the performance at a city council meeting. We're not getting that now. But with respect to the elm tree, you've got close to 1,000 emails and notices from the public, and we're not getting, a response from City Hall that is representing the people who are concerned over that tree. If I had been called at the last meeting properly, because my hand was raised and I was on the Zoom call, I might have had something valuable to say. For example, if you tied 2 lines from the 2 pine trees that are in the proximity of the elm tree to the elm tree and left some slack in it, you'd be able to see if the elm tree was actually leaning. It's a stable tree, but nobody has determined that because you haven't done something that simple that could be done for the tree. In the meantime, there are people that can do work on that tree that will bring its health up to much better standard than it is now. And it's not in bad health. And that hasn't been proven otherwise. All we have is a resistograph test that was done by the city of Monterey, and the city of Monterey wouldn't write the report on it. And Dan Go isn't an arborist. And I haven't seen the arborist report from your Albert Weisfist on this issue either. So I believe that the entirety of this is all being misrepresented at this time, and that you as a governing body have the right to bring this back to the public and deal with it. It hasn't been dealt with correctly yet, and it's now in court. We will be in court with you tomorrow. You're welcome to join us at 10 a.m.
Thank you.
Telephone extension 880, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Hi, it's Janet Cohen. I'm going to speak about something you haven't had any emails from me about. I'm just kidding. It's about story poles. Originally, you were told that story poles on the ATC site were too dangerous and thus were functioning on faulty information. We now know this is not true. Story poles or their equivalents can be put up. The city assured the Coastal Commission for the certification of the LCP that its IP included a requirement for story poles. This is the first major project coming before the city of Pacific Grove since the LCP, and a test for how well functionally our LCP holds up under pressure of seeking revenue to also provide the coastal protections that were guaranteed to Coastal Commission. Story poles need to be up before the proposed ATC project comes before you, which we now know will be in January, as its city council members, in order for you and the public to have the visual tool necessary for adequately assessing the project's height, bulk, and scale, and visual impacts on near and far views from a variety of angles. And that's a variety of coming different ways on streets, going up the hill, from out at sea. It's impossible from a 2-dimensional photo to know. If story poles are not installed or their equivalent, I just want to really stress this point to you. The communication to both Coastal Commission and the public will be, we hear you, but we do not care to listen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew Gonzalez, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you. I found out I'm a student from CSUMB. I was a student at CSUMB, and I found out that the police, Kathy Madelone, is running a hate group here in town, and she likes to use companies. Like, I was a student at CSUMB, and one of the worst companies was MST, but it wasn't the only company. And she has basically been trying to cover this up for a while by sending me death threats pretty much on a daily basis.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Gonzalez, we won't tolerate slander or accusations at this public forum.
Look,
if you have an issue, please, you can take this up. Well, obviously it's with our police department. You can take this up with the Monterey County District Attorney's Office. This is not the place.
The district attorney's office told me to talk to the city lawyer, and I talked to the media, and I was told that that city council is the place to talk about this stuff. If you guys care about libel laws and slander more than minorities, then we can talk about that. But there's a hate group in town, and that that affects everybody.
Thank you for your comment.
Lisa Ciani, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you. And I support Janet Cohen's comments strongly. But I want to talk to you about how much I appreciate the mayor's efforts on behalf of the elm tree in Jewel Park with the support of council members McAdams and Coletti. Council discussion started out on November 17th as if the public was respected and there was an intention to find the best guidance for simultaneously preserving the tree and assuring that it's safe for the public. This would have been comparable to getting a second opinion for a medical condition, and it should have been approved by the majority of the council, considering the conflicting expert opinions and the huge public protest over Public Works plan to, quote, remove, or more accurately, kill the tree for the benefit of a straight sidewalk. If an independent professional tree preservation consultant, such as a firm with both a certified arborist and a landscape architect, finds that the tree is unsafe, then council could make a well-founded decision to remove the tree. It's very sad that 4 members of the council had their minds closed to learning why there is so much concern on the part of BNRC and so many in the community, including experts, about this marvelous mature tree. The majority of council apparently felt that a requirement to plant 5 additional young trees could resolve the issue. There was no mention of improving the city's care for its mature trees. It's unfortunate that council's vote on the elm was uninformed. It's important for council to take actions that are consistent with city ordinances and policies. This would have been a great opportunity for the city to commit to its adopted standards for dealing with conflicts between trees and infrastructure, and to learn more as our city's tree canopy becomes even more vitally important with climate change. Instead, there are no lessons learned, and the community concerns were disregarded in favor of relying on a memo from a misinformed lawyer in Pasadena who claims there was an independent arborist when the city's own arborist is obviously not independent. The lawyer also asserts that the city has made many efforts over time to preserve the tree by relocating the sidewalk and what he refers to as site treatment, in addition to pruning the roots. Where's the evidence? The tree is supposed to be monitored annually if there's concern about its condition, according to the city's own regulations. The city's alleged protective measures for the elm were not carried out appropriately, and the city is not carrying out its responsibilities as described in its 2013 Urban Forestry Tree Ordinance and LCP Policy Bio 18. When is the city going to start protecting its mature trees?
Thank you.
Kim, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you. I would also like to support Janet Cohen's comments. And I would like to hear that you'll give the same consideration to the community as you're giving to the developers. And we have asked repeatedly for the story polls, and we would like to see the story polls up so everybody in the community can see the size of this development. So please consider us also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anthony Ciani, you have the floor.
Welcome.
I was trying to get unmuted. I apologize for the delay. I'm going to follow the story poll lead there for a moment. The diagrams that the Planning Commission have been reviewing show elevations of this building. Say, for example, the elevation of the what they call a bluff swing at Erdley, and that diagram. In that diagram, the building is 12 inches long and about 1 inch high. Now you're trying to look at this diagram. It's not a true elevation, it's a diagram. And you're looking at something that's a foot wide and 1 inch high, and you're trying to imagine a building that's 150 feet wide and 40 feet high. How do you do that? And if you look at it from Central Avenue, the building's about 460 feet wide. That's 1.5 football fields wide by about 1 inch high. And you're looking at a drawing that trying to show you that, and you're trying to then imagine that in real life. It doesn't work. That's why for the last 50 years, communities along the shoreline from Del Mar, Imperial Beach, up north to Marin County, they use story poles because they're full-size, real-life examples that allows everybody in daylight, in the fog or whatever, to see the magnitude of the building, the height of it, the width of it, the mass of it. You need to require story poles. And they're safe. There's a structural engineer who has said she would help any contractor who's licensed and bonded to develop a story pole plan. Please do that. Meanwhile, you need to look at your ordinances and find out where the conflicts are and resolve those. Resolve them on behalf of the community, not just on behalf of developers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do not see any other hands raised.
Okay, we'll close general public comment and move on to the consent agenda. Any items council members wish to pull from the consent agenda? Councilmember McAdams.
Yes, I'd like to pull 8A like apple and 6B like boy.
Anyone else? I'd like to pull item 6A, council policy 400-7 city credit card. All right, we'll go out to the public. Public wish to pull any items?
Anthony Ciani, you have the floor.
I'd like to pull the minutes from November 17th.
Thank you.
That's item 5A.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
I believe, Mr. Oliver, you have the floor.
Would like to second pulling the minutes from November 17th.
Thank you.
Okay, so under unfinished and ongoing business, which is item number 12. Let's do 5A, that's the minutes, November 17th, followed by 6A, that's the credit card policy, followed by 6B, that's the meeting and travel policy. And what am I missing? Parks and condition assessment. Let's put that as new business E, 13E as in eagle. Okay. I have a motion to approve the amended consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, and a vote, please.
Thank you. For clarification, was that Councilmember Emilio for a second?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember McAdams?
Aye.
Councilmember Emilio?
Aye.
Mayor Peak?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Councilmembers Coletti?
Aye.
Baduri?
Aye.
And Tomlinson?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you. All right, quickly, what we've just done is we've received from Councilmember Emilio the Monterey Salinas Transit minutes, board minutes from October, from Councilmember Pedori, 2021 League of California Cities Annual Conference Report. We've received a report of new local emergency actions from Mr. Harvey, of which there were not any. We've received Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force minutes from Ms. Kendall. Minutes from the Economic Development Commission from September from Mr. Moreland, and the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting in October from Ms. Hunter, and thank everyone for preparing those reports. So that brings us to what, well, we've introduced and held the first reading of an ordinance to amend the salary classification schedule to modify salary ranges for a cashier, intern, a lighthouse docent, coordinator, recreation assistant 1, 2, and recreation supervisor, and deleted the school crossing guard position. And that's all in accordance with state law for the higher minimum wage. So that brings us to the new item 11A, ordinance to amend the city classification schedule, MEA. Ms. Livian, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. I am going to share my screen. There we go. Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff, and members of the public. City Council approved the Management Employee Association's Memorandum of Understanding back in March of 2020. During those negotiations, a total compensation study was completed and several classifications were identified as being under 95% of market median for total compensation. City's council target for total compensation is 95% of market median. Classifications identified under the market median are construction project manager, management analyst, and principal planner. The approved MOU provided for market equity adjustment for these classifications and to bring these classification salaries up to 95% of market median. 50% of the equity adjustment happened in 2020, and the other 50% of the equity adjustment is scheduled for January of 2022. Funding for this increase has been budgeted for the 21-22 fiscal year. These salary adjustments were approved when council approved the MOU. However, the administrative changes to the city salary schedule is done by ordinance. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of an ordinance to amend the salary schedule. Okay, and that concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
Mr. Mayor, I do not see any hands raised.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to our HR Director for preparing this agenda report. I would like to move the recommended action.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? May we have Councilmember Coletti?
Thank you, Your Honor. The last time we kind of discussed market median and salary surveys, et cetera, is when we created the positions for an assistant city manager and a deputy city manager. So currently we have 3 positions with city manager in their title. At that point, I questioned the city manager about this market median and the salary survey. And basically the response was, they are considered comparable salaries. For instance, at the time we were looking at the salary survey for the deputy city manager, Mr. Go, which included a listing, a comparable listing for the public works director for the county of Monterey, which has a budget over $1 billion. The city manager's response was, well, if they can apply for that position, that means we can use that salary and integrate that into the calculation of a median. So I've got a real problem with how we're actually doing salary surveys in the city and what values and what comparables we use to feed into the mix for calculating the median. And this is kind of this whole, it's a never-ending process because, you know, Seaside will say, hey, PG just used Monterey County's values. We should be doing that. And it just elevates the baseline up and up and up. And as a result, the taxpayers have to fund these salary increases. So I do not believe we have an accurate or representative means of determining what the 95% market median truly is. And because it is skewed high, I won't be able to support that, support this this evening. Thank you.
Any other council discussion? May we have a vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Tomlinson?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Councilmembers Emilio?
Aye.
McAdams?
Aye.
Coletti?
No.
Paduri?
Aye.
Mayor Peak?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the new item 11B, ordinance to approve an amendment to the fiscal year 2021 operating capital improvement budget. Ms. Hanna, welcome.
One moment, I'm having some technical difficulties. Just give me 1 second. Okay, good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council and members of the public. The item that I have before you today is to approve an ordinance amending the fiscal year 21-22 operating and capital improvement budget. Just to provide a quick recap, the city had applied for American Rescue Plan Act funds, which were available as a result of the pandemic. The city qualified under the replaced lost public sector revenue category, which resulted in the city being awarded $3.7 million over 2 years. Originally, $1.4 million was included in the fiscal year 21-22 budget. However, this amount was adjusted to $1.84 million, which left approximately $394,000 more than anticipated. At the council meeting on October 20th, 2021, staff requested amending the budget to receive the ARPA funds, as well as consider an ordinance to allocate funding for multiple council priorities, which include capital improvements, projects, and some position changes. Of that amount that was requested, approximately $157,000 in expenditures were deferred or removed from that ordinance. Direction was given to conduct additional research on the feasibility of acquiring an electric-powered animal control vehicle, as well as identifying alternative projects based on the Recreation Board's parks inventory and condition assessment. At this meeting this evening, staff is bringing forward recommendations for $166,000 in general fund expenditures. Also, the next tranche of ARPA monies will be discussed during upcoming outreach and council meetings, and the city manager will bring in an item forward to talk about those outreach efforts at an upcoming council meeting. One of the items that was suggested is park upgrades and repairs. Looking at this list, there are some new bleachers at the George Washington Ball Field, picnic tables, young children's and ADA compliant playground at George Washington Park as well, picnic tables at Arnett Park, and decomposed granite at the Elmery Dyke Park and Arnett Park for a total of $74,000 in funding. In relation to the animal control community service officer vehicle, the vehicle proposed is just not going to be an animal control vehicle, but also be used for other functions within the CSO job specifications. The police department conducted some research, and they found that electric and hybrid vans are not readily available. And in addition, they have not been utilized in a public safety environment with the relevant equipment. Some of this equipment includes computer and radio equipment and emergency lighting. Staff is recommending purchasing a vehicle with an intent to transition to an electric vehicle in approximately 5 years. The full analysis is included as an attachment within your agenda report. The estimated cost for the vehicle itself is $30,000 and $20,000 for the equipment. It is also anticipated that this vehicle will have significantly better mileage than the existing vehicle, which also has some safety hazards. Staff is also requesting council to reconsider the one-time COVID-19 employee bonus incentive. This was removed for them from the ordinance. Part of the rationale for this request is acknowledging employee support and their dedication. You recall all employee groups participated in a 5 to 10% furlough to anticipate with the anticipated revenue shortfalls due to COVID-19. The estimated savings from this furlough was $634,000. Staff also worked to implement new technologies to assist in providing remote work, remote council meetings, and also to set protocols to assist the community due to the pandemic requirements. The recommendation is to approve a special incentive pay of $500 to be distributed to regular employees based on their prorated time and service during fiscal year 2021 which was the height of the pandemic. The estimated cost for this one-time incentive is $42,000. And with that, I conclude my presentation. I would also like to share that the Public Works Director and the Police Chief and Ms. Francis from the Police Department and Ms. Livian from HR is also available for any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Anthony Ciani, you have the floor.
Welcome.
I just want to support the notion or the proposal to provide a one-time payment to all of the employees who went on furlough because of the pandemic. I actually think it should be more like $1,000. Thank you.
Thank you.
Inga Lawrenson-Doimer, you have the floor.
Welcome.
How interesting. I'm totally against giving bonuses to the employees. We all went through a lot of suffering and they were still collecting a paycheck and they were still working. And as far as furloughs go, I think they were made whole afterwards. And so they really didn't lose anything. So I'm totally against it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I see no other hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
Council comments, discussion? I'll just jump into the last comment. The city employees were not made whole. If you know the deductions, the 10% during the third quarter of 2020 and the 5% pay cut during the fourth quarter of 2020, that was not reimbursed to the employees. However, the employees were given time off, so they were not paid, or they didn't take a pay cut for time worked. It was for time off. Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you to the staff who put this together. And I like the reallocation of the $75,000 to the ballparks and the repairs and the upgrades at the parks. I'll just say, you know, later we are talking more about park inventory, and I know next year there's going to be more discussion with the community on what can be done around the city with additional ARPA money. What I do not want to see happen is, again, whatever the community comes up with is where we'll try to program that money. I have this suspicion, or I hope that recreation is somewhere towards the top of that list, and that we will be able to allocate a fairly significant amount of the funds towards additional recreation programming and parks, and because those types of offerings are able to be enjoyed by every member of the community. And so I just don't want this $75,000 to be like, feel like we gave the parks something and then that means that later on there's no more. So I don't think that'll be the case. I love this idea of getting headed in the right direction with replacing picnic tables and bleachers and ADA compliant and really some of our safety items, and they should be tackled first. So thank you for reallocating or bringing up these alternative projects to the wayfinding one which was not real popular. I'm bummed about the animal control vehicle not being able to be electric, but I totally get it, and I appreciate all the research that went into it. And if the industry is not there yet, it will be soon. And I think buying something in the interim that a lot of it can be transferred, the equipment, into an electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle when the time comes makes a lot of sense. So I think it's a good recommendation. And you can't just make something appear that's not, for sale on the market, that will be able to be utilized the way this is more than just an animal control vehicle. It's a whole community service vehicle with lots of responsibilities and gaps that it's going to cover. I was supportive of the COVID-19 bonus incentive before, and I'm still supportive of it. I think that the staff is very well deserving. A lot of people are deserving, but I really appreciate their support during the furlough and accepting that at an off-cycle time. And I think it's fine to, at an off-cycle time, utilize these funds with incentive pay. And I know a lot of other communities have used ARPA money in this fashion, and it's for COVID relief. So it really applies and makes sense. I look forward to the future conversations about forthcoming ARPA allocations, and I'll just repeat with what I started with, and that Parks and Recreation, as long as if the community polling agrees with that, it's something I think would be an area of interest for me in order to program some of that money. And I look forward to those discussions. So thank you.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to echo Councilmember Tomlinson's comment with regards to, these park investments, just sort of like the beginning of them. And I'm very excited to and grateful to see staff, they really listened to our discussion and came back with what, we discussed, which was an investment in our community and open space. So I do have a question though, regarding the ADA compliant play equipment. Is this inclusive playground equipment for children of all abilities? And then is this replacing the current equipment, or will this be in addition to what is currently there? Hi, Mr. Go. Thank you.
Council member, the mayor, it's anticipated that we will add to the existing equipment, $25,000. We should be able to get the George Washington Park play equipment that's currently at that site is geared towards older children. We're looking at getting something for younger kids that's accessible for all. So if this is approved this evening, I'll begin the research and reach out to the companies that manufacture this equipment and see where we can go and what we can get, and potentially utilize the $25,000 that's allocated with some grant funding and see if we can enhance even more. That's my goal.
Thank you, Director Go. That is exciting. I am so happy to hear that. So thank you for that work that is forthcoming. I too am disappointed about the animal services vehicle. However, I did do some research, and it seems like with electric vehicles, they're not quite there yet, especially when it comes to public safety. Public safety vehicles tend to have to idle for long periods of time. So, I think that the solution that staff has brought us is reasonable and very fair. And thank you to the chief for taking that time and looking into that. So in summary, I support all the items before us. I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to our employees. I know how hard the pandemic has been and continues to be on our households, families, mental health, finances, et cetera. And so, for me, this COVID bonus is absolutely, I absolutely support it, and I'm happy to see it going to our employees. Thank you.
Councilmember Emilio.
Yeah, I didn't want to, I'll echo everything else, but I do want to make a comment. When I was on the commission, Recreation Commission, we did authorize to put equipment in. But later on, when I was ending that commission, we did realize there was some ADA situations, and I'm glad it's brought there. I also want to bring up that I totally agree with the COVID, what was just said about the bonus, but I do want to say some of the public employees that helped myself and Mo Amar with the memorial for the U.S. soldiers that were killed in Afghanistan and the Veterans Day, they were on just before then, they were on furlough that day, but they set up barricades and everything, and they definitely deserve that. I also wanted to mention that when I toured the police department, I got to tour the old animal shelter vehicle, and it's in terrible shape. And plus, I wanted to note, it was an excellent report, but you know, this new gas van gets 25 to 28 miles a gallon. I think that old van they drove was 9 to 10 miles an hour. So we are getting efficiency out of that too. So I'm in total support, and I'd be willing to make a motion when the time is right, Mayor.
Councilmember Peduri.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate everybody's comments. I'm in really aligned there, but I just had a couple of questions. This EV item is kind of like a pet peeve of mine. So I just wanted a couple of things to know. One is just from for my education, what happens to the old vehicles? Like, you have an old vehicle here. We're proposing a new vehicle, which is gas, and we're suggesting that it's 30,000. We're suggesting in 5 years, we're going to replace an electric. What if we want to purchase something in 2 years from now? What does the city do with the old vehicle? Is this an exchange program? Is this something that is donated? How does the process go? And I don't know who to address this to, so maybe Ms. Hannah, I can start with you, but probably maybe the city manager. Or Mr.
I could tackle it, Councilmember Peduri, through the mayor. So typically old vehicles, like the old animal control vehicle that you see that has lived its service life, would get surplus. We would put that on public auction, and we would simply put it out to bid, and the highest bid would get it. Typically a vehicle like that would go for $1,000 to $1,500, and then the city would just realize that funding source, and it would go into the general fund. If we were to exchange something like this animal control vehicle that we are going to purchase now in a couple years for something electric, we would either take that vehicle and put it into service with another department in the city for public works, recreation, so on and so forth. Or if it's that new, we could maybe simply trade it in like you would your vehicle for a newer car if something came available.
Okay, that's helpful to know. And the equipment that's there, which was cited at 20,000 to be equipped to become an animal control vehicle, so to speak, is that equipment like transferable to? Say we bought this tomorrow, we got all the equipment done. In a year from now, we want an electric vehicle, and the equipment, can we reuse the same equipment? Or is that a TBD, to be decided kind of item? Mr. Go, maybe you. Oh, go ahead.
I can take this one. From all the research that I did, it does look like the major companies, the electric options that they're coming out with are the same scope and size as the current gas models that are out there. So I'm confident that we would be able to transfer most, if not all, of the equipment. And some of it, like the emergency lights and the computer and radio equipment, is transferable across vehicles no matter their size. So.
Okay, wonderful. So I appreciate all the research that went into this. Thank you for it. I'm good with this item.
Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
Your Honor, motion to approve.
I'll second that.
May we have a vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Emilio?
Aye.
Councilmembers Coletti?
Aye.
McAdams?
Aye.
Peduri?
Aye.
And Tomlinson?
Aye.
Mayor Peak?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. We'll now go to the former item 5A, council minutes from November 17th. Ms. Kendall, I'm sure you do not have a presentation prepared for this.
I do not, sir. No. I will bring to the council's attention my errata and just present the minutes as they are.
Thank you. And now we'll go out for public comment.
Thank you. Mr. Ciani, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for ticking us off the consent item. I've sent you a couple of letters, one dated yesterday, the 30th, the other one is the December 1st today. Basically what I'm saying is the byline at the bottom of the minutes indicates that this project was approved with the understanding that you made CEQA findings for a class 4 exemption due to the what I've pointed out is that if you go back and look at the agendas and you look at the staff reports, they weren't there. There was no, during the votes and the motions and discussions of the city council, no mention of the CEQA exemptions was made. So my understanding is you didn't take an action to exempt this project from CEQA. And let's say you did. Let's look at the exemption that was applied for, which was under the exemption 15304. That's a class 4. It consists of minor, and I'm quoting this, class 4 consists of minor public or private alterations in the condition of the land, water, or vegetation, which do not involve removal of healthy, mature, scenic trees. So that's an argument. Was this a scenic tree? I think so. It's in the scenic zone, in the coastal zone. Were there exceptions to class 4? Absolutely. Exceptions are due to the location, that it's in the coastal zone. And in the coastal zone, this project, which is the entire project, is the reconstruction of the sidewalk and the street, the removal of the tree. All of that involves excavation into an area that's been designated in the general plan and the local coastal program as an archaeological sensitive area. And if you look at the exceptions to the exemptions, you would see you can't do that. So I think this is a big flaw in the decision-making process. And I think it's a flaw in the minutes because you didn't do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Oliver, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you. I haven't researched this enough to really be intelligent about what I'm about to say, but getting back to the fact that what we're dealing with is a quasi hearing at a city council meeting on a Zoom conference. The information in this hearing is not complete, and therefore the minutes are the entirety of what the meeting should have been. And I think that it should be reheard because there was a lot of other information that we were prepared to offer the other night. And my input on this is that I know that we can give you 5 names of people that will come forward saying that they had their hands raised and were not called. I was one of the 5 that we have a total of right now. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see no other hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
Any council? Councilmember Coletti.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Ciani does make a valid point The minutes do include a CEQA finding, and that finding was not included in the agenda report. This is for agenda item 11A from our November 17th hearing on the elm tree. And I will just leave it at that.
Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
I move approval of the minutes.
Second.
I'll just echo Councilmember Coletti. If we're missing documents, let's please staff be sure, double check that we've got all the documents in our agenda reports particularly for hearings. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Emilio?
Aye.
Councilmembers Coletti?
Aye.
McAdams?
Aye.
Baduri?
Aye.
Tomlinson?
Aye.
Mayor Peak?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 to approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you. We're now on to the former item 6A credit card policy that I believe is Ms. Oh, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff, and members of the public. I don't have a presentation for this item, but the Administrative Services Department is in the process of developing a procurement manual. And as part of this process, we're reviewing the credit card policy. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Do we have any public comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Bob Oliver, you have the floor.
Welcome.
I'm sorry, I just hand raising works. I had hit the. I don't even want to try to figure this one out. I have nothing to say on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I see no other hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
All right, any council comments? As I was the one to pull this, I've got a few items. First of all, I see that the approving officials for credit card statements, this is section 7 statement under statement processing procedures. On the bottom line, it essentially has the assistant city manager's credit card get approved by the city manager, and the city manager approves the assistant city manager. So you have two people and they're just approving each other's expenditures. I'm wondering, is that a best practice? And maybe we can do better than that. Ms. Pope?
Yes, that is our currently what we, that's the process that we follow currently. As far as I know, that is a process that others follow, but I see Director Hannah has joined and maybe she can answer that more clearly.
They require dual authorization, and it would be dependent on the position. I would say if council would like to change that practice, I would suggest that a council member approve or the mayor approve the city manager's credit card. But there is limitations on the card use. It is subject to audit, and our auditors have found it appropriate in its existing format.
Okay, interesting. I'm moving on. Let me get my notes up. Under section 2, card issuance, credit cards shall not be issued to volunteers, part-time employees, seasonal employees, or contracted employees. I'd like to add elected officials and board, committee, and commission members. I think as elected officials, well, we're not a big city. This is a part-time position. We're not big city elected officials with a staff. I'm just questioning the appropriateness for credit cards for elected officials, considering we probably don't have or shouldn't be having too many expenditures. And then boards, committee, and commission members, almost goes without saying, those shouldn't be encouraging or incurring expenses. So that's, and then, so that's one addition. And the other addition is also under section 2. The credit card may not be used for products or services such as the ones listed below, alcoholic beverages and tobacco products. I would like to add cannabis and vaping products. So it would be inappropriate to use the credit card to purchase cannabis and vaping products. So I'd like to add those two. So there's the two things. I'd love to hear council comments. Those are the two changes I'd like to make. Council, Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would move approval with your added changes that you described.
I'll second that.
Okay. Without further discussion, then may we have a vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams,
Aye.
Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Councilmembers Emilio,
Aye.
Coletti,
Aye.
Paduri,
Aye.
Tomlinson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. We're now on to the former item 6B, which is credit card policy 0002 meeting and travel expense reimbursement. Ms. Pope.
Thank you, Mayor. This policy is also being updated as a part of the development of the procurement manual, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Do we have any public, thank you. Do we have any public comments?
No, sir, no hands are raised.
All right, we'll bring it back to council for council discussion. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you. I pulled this item. I have a couple questions, but first I'd like to thank Ms. Pope and the accounting department for developing a procurement manual. That was great to see. And I do hope that sustainable purchasing practices are incorporated in it. My two questions are, is there a budgeted amount for the boards, committees, and commissions? Do we allocate an amount for travel, like per each commission?
I'm going to have asked Ms. Hannah to answer that. I know there's a budget for travel for departments, but I'm not sure if it's specifically for the boards and commissions and committees.
Typically, I have not seen one for boards, commissions, and committees. As part of the annual budget process, the department would be placing a training budget and try and identify the type of trainings, like they may say sending 3 people to the league conference. One of the things our prior policy did not necessarily address was boards, commissions, and committees. So we wanted to make sure and add that in if it were to arise. we've also talked to the city manager and the city clerk, and it seems like if anything, it would be more of the rare occurrence when something like that would come up, and it could be more related to the planning commission if there were something where there would be travel.
Thank you for that. I mean, I definitely support, you know, the development and professional development of our commissioners. I just am a little concerned though that, you know, we have a multitude of commissions and there's 7 on each commission. I just wonder if we're sort of foreseeing that perhaps there will be travel in those groups, do we want to allocate a budget for them? And then they will be able to decide who's going and how often. Because for me, the way the policy is written, it's just sort of if there's money available in the budget period. Is that correct?
It would be that the commission, the staff member who's a part of the commission would recommend the training, and then it would be placed in the budget, but it would also be subject to the city manager approval as well. If there were funds within the budget, usually for the majority of them, they're earmarked at the beginning of the year. So I would not necessarily think it's an open door to say that, you know, like say finance had an additional $5,000, that would be specific for finance people to attend, like say updates on taxes and new accounting pronouncements and things like that.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. And that actually brings me to my second concern is the approval process. I don't think that staff liaisons should be approving travel for our commissioners. I think that that's putting them in just not a very good position. So can you speak as to why that was the solution to that, or why that was included in this policy?
Well, we were looking at what would be the best way to handle this. One, they would know if there is some kind of training that someone would want to go to, and they would review that in turn with the city manager. I believe that the city manager is the final approval on that piece. So it just provides a mechanism for if this were to come up, the staff person would speak to the city manager about it. And the department head would also be informed because it would be coming from that particular department's budget. So there would be, it would not be necessarily an automatic, it would be planned and subject to, I would say, both the liaison working with a department head, but also getting the city manager's buy-in before that was even placed in the budget.
Okay, and so then so what about like the EDC and the DEI where the city manager is also the staff liaison? What is that what does that look like?
The city manager would ultimately approve it. It would all be within his signature level of authority. It just provides a layer, I would say, for the liaison to make sure that the city manager has bought off on that particular training for that function. And I see he is online. He might want to add some further insight.
Sure, thank you. Councilmember McAdams through the mayor. So really what we're talking about primarily is the Planning Commission, the ARB, HRC, you know, the CDD boards primarily. There's some League of California Cities training, specifically, mostly for planning commissioners that we have in the past sent them to. For the EDC, as you know, of course, you're the liaison to the EDC. They have a budget. I haven't in the past seen the EDC recommend using it for training for its members. Primarily, they've used it for promotional items, advertising, that type of thing, some infrastructure related stuff. But certainly if yeah, I would count that in the spectrum of possibilities. If, for example, they wanted to go to CalEd, a CalEd conference, that would probably seem appropriate if the chair and the members wanted to do something like that. I don't know if I've answered your question, but please let me know if you have more.
No, that's it. Thank you. I think the edits to the policy are good, and I appreciate that we're bringing this up to date. I just want to make sure that we're being thorough here. So thank you.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Pope, thank you for all the work on this. When do you expect the procurement manual to be finalized and maybe brought to council as a report item?
We have been working on it for quite some time now. It should come at the beginning of the year. Okay. And with the procurement manual, we will also be doing a training to go along with it.
And the procurement manual basically cover everything that's handled by credit cards and the purchase order authority given to the city manager, et cetera, right?
Correct.
The purchase order authority, one thing that I would like to see regards this procurement manual is how many times an initial PO, which has been authorized by the city manager, has gone over the amount allowed in statute in our municipal code. I believe it's 40,000 plus whatever the CPI rate is. So I think I definitely encourage this development of this, but I think we also need to start thinking about the POs that do get issued that actually end up going over the threshold amount. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tempore Eastman.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll just move approval of the recommended action.
I'll second.
I have more concerns, well, similar concerns to Councilmember McAdams. And I appreciate Ms. Pope, your work on this. And I agree with the policy as it's written for handling city staff meeting and travel expense reimbursement. But I don't think it's appropriate to lump council elected officials and appointed officials, our boards, commissions, committees, members in with city employees and try to lump it all together. I realize you're trying to streamline the process, sort of one size fits all. But I think for elected officials and appointed officials, I think we need to have a higher standard or different set of rules, a bit tighter in regards to city expenditures. So what am I talking about? Well, first of all, for council member expense reports approved by the city manager, that is an awkward relationship. The city manager's supervisor is collectively city council. So there is, I'm not saying it's happening today, but in the future, it's a relationship where the subordinate, the employee is approving the supervisor's expenses. And I think a better way to handle that is to go ahead and handle city council expenditures and have the city manager and the mayor approve expenditures. And in the case of my expenditures, it would be the city manager and the mayor pro tempore. I think that will tighten up and cover a very awkward situation. And for boards, committees, and commissions, I think the city manager and the mayor should share responsibility, both approvals for expenditures. As we've just described, it's not going to happen very often, hasn't happened apparently very often, but I think that would make sense. The boards, commissions, and committee members don't report to the city manager. So let's cover that with the city manager and mayor having to approve both of those. And then I heard comments about reporting. And I think not that this is a huge amount of money, but again, I think that council, we need to have a higher standard of transparency. So I would like to see in the budget, in the council, under departmental budgets, there's a council budget. And I'd like to see a specific line for travel and these expenses, travel and meeting expenses. And add the committee members too, add them in this budget. So we have an idea, and that might generate a better discussion as to why we have a budget of $5,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 when it comes to our budget. I'd like to see that as an explicit line. There's for council, let's see, it's awkward. They talk about, in this policy, there's a section that talks about council reimbursements. And then at the very end, section 5, stipends from external parties. And so in one place it says these expenses are allowed. And then in another place towards the end of the policy, it says these expenses are not allowed. And so I think we need to put that together. And I'm particularly concerned about the regional boards that council sits on. I personally, I would prefer that if anyone goes on a trip because of their board, their board seat, I mean, my preference would be that board pays for that. I believe not too long ago, a council member went to the East Coast, and I'm like, wow. I hope PG didn't pay for that trip, but I think it might have been very worthwhile for that particular agency. But I can see splitting the cost, and I'm not talking about driving to meetings in Monterey, because they're covered under our they're covered under all our stipends. And also, I believe every council member gets a stipend for every regional board meeting they attend. I may be wrong on that, but most boards have a stipend that covers driving, certainly within Monterey County. So I'd like to see this separated out, the city council and the boards, commissions, and committees meeting and travel expenses. I'd like to see that carved out, a separate section of this policy, and make it clear on those items I've just described. Councilmember Tomlinson.
Mayor, thanks for the discussion. I just have one concern, and maybe you have a way around it, but I don't want to create an environment where you are sort of unspokenly hailed if you don't put in your travel expenses, or you don't take stipends, or you don't, get reimbursed for things. And so if this is reported in line item detail as to which council members get reimbursed and which ones are, don't, I wouldn't like to see that happen. I think it's a personal preference, and honestly, I would encourage every council member to be reimbursed. This is not a job. I mean, the reimbursements are there for a reason, for travel and maintenance on your vehicle, for attending conferences. It shouldn't be an out-of-pocket expense. I understand that we have the ability to forego those expenses, but anyway, so are you suggesting that the transparency would be by council member, or by buckets?
Bucket.
Okay, then I'm okay with it. Thanks.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Your Honor. And just to follow up on that point, I think the line item you're asking about is for actually during the budgetary cycle, right? Or you actually asked for reporting as well?
Well, I'd like to see it as part of the budget document, and it's part of services and supplies.
Yeah.
For each department, there's four lines, and it's buried in services and supplies, but you wouldn't know what that component is.
Right, so that's for the budget cycle, for preparing the budget. And as far as the line items, all of, the reimbursements are all documented in the check register or the warrant list. I do like these suggestions you've made, Your Honor. I also like the fact that you pointed out that the regional stipends also, getting back into our discussion, maybe a little bit about council salary. Council members do receive stipends from other boards and joint power agencies that they may be a member of. So I think those all make good sense. I think the public would want to see that, and I would support it.
So I'm suggesting we direct staff to come back with amended policy in light of the comments tonight. Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
I think we have a motion and a second on the floor, Your Honor.
Okay, we certainly do.
Is the maker of the motion? Go ahead.
So my amended motion is to direct staff to come back with a revised policy reflecting council discussion tonight.
I'll withdraw my initial second and offer a second to your motion.
Councilmember Pedori.
Yes, while you were making the motion, I saw Ms. Hannah had her hand up. I wanted to know if she had anything to comment.
Right through the mayor, I was just a little bit unclear on section V, stipends from external parties, as far as what you were expecting in that adjustment.
Well, that might be a discussion from council if, and I don't know how frequently people would be going on trips outside of the county, perhaps outside of the state as a result of their board membership. What do you think? Should we share that cost? Or ask the board to, or the agency to pay for the entire cost? Tomlinson.
Mayor, I think it should be that we are at least willing to share, if not willing to cover it. I believe in professional involvement and education and being able to attend events. So if that particular regional board does not have the funds to send someone, then the city should pay for it. So I don't have a problem with that.
Councilmember Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure where we're at on this, but I'm going to use an example here. On being an MST board of directors, there are several board members that do fly to the East Coast or to the Midwest, and all of it's reimbursed by MST. I have never partaken in any of that because of my time and flying or anything, but MST does reimburse their chair and vice chair and others that want to go. I just want you to know that it has no bearing on any city funds. It's all MST. That's from MST.
Councilmember Pedori.
Yeah, I would like to have more information on this item because according to me, if this is about training, I mean, this day and age, we can get it. You don't have to travel, really. So I need to understand where folks are traveling for us to really consider this item itself. So I really need more information before making up my mind. Thanks.
Councilmember Coletti.
I'm going to second some of the comments Councilmember Tomlinson made. I think my own belief is that the travel reimbursement should come from the agency that the council member or mayor is on. But if that's not available, ultimately, you know, as being members of these boards and joint power authorities, we are representing the people. And if there's a justifiable need, then I would say the city would pay for it after review. But we should first seek, I think the order of precedent here is that the agency would be asked to pay for it or be given the opportunity to comment on payment for it. And if that doesn't happen, then the city, after review, would potentially pay for it. So I think this, I don't want to get too much in the weeds on this. I think it's all very, I appreciate us getting it into the policy, no doubt about it. But I don't want to see this one item hang up the overall suggestions you've made. I think I think it's pretty structurally. I think it would flow pretty easily that the agency would pay, and if they can't or there's a cost sharing thing, then the city would pay it. Thank you.
Well, I hope that's not that that's terribly clear that everybody's on consensus, but I think hopefully that's helpful and maybe some options. I agree with Councilmember Pedori that if there is additional information in regards to regional board travel and stipends and that information, if you could bring that back, that could also help help us make a good decision, wise decision. Okay. So the motion is to direct staff to come back with an amended policy. And it's been seconded by Councilmember Coletti. So let's have a vote, please, Ms. Kendall.
Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
No.
Councilmember Emilio,
No.
Councilmember Coletti,
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams,
Aye.
Councilmember Peduri,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-2.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to 8 o'clock, the usual time for a recess. If there's no objections and seeing none, let's resume again at 8:10. Well, let's make it 8:12, a couple more minutes. 8:12, please.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
let's resume. We're at item 13A, concept review, tax increase, cannabis tax, zoning. Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I need to ask the city clerk to please help me by putting up the presentation and sharing the screen and advancing the slides for me. Thank you, Ms. Campbell.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Candell. So this is a concept review where I'm coming to the City Council with a proposal for a potential future election with 3 items on it, one for the sales tax increase, one for a cannabis sales tax, and the allowance for potentially up to 1 dispensary for recreational use cannabis, and one for some changes to the zoning to allow for additional affordable housing. Next slide, please. Next slide. I just said this one. Thank you. Sorry. I'm recommending 2 potential election dates for this proposal, either as a special election in June, on June 7th, which is the primary election, or at the general election, which is November 8th of 2022. Next slide, please. So there are some requirements if council wants to move forward with this concept. Tax increases that are not on the general election have to be approved to go to a special election by unanimous vote with a declaration of fiscal emergency. Further, if the council is to consider a cannabis sales tax and zoning district changes, those would require CEQA review. And finally, on the topic of the zoning district proposed changes, those will also need to go before the Planning Commission. Next slide, please. If the council wants to consider any of these 3 proposals or all of these 3 proposals or a subset, council may also want to consider whether to hire a pollster to determine voter appetite or interest, not only in the measures, but also in the proposed election. Council may want to consider some type of public outreach, of course, adhering to requirements so as to not electioneer. And council may also want to propose a survey to gauge interest. Next slide. If there is consensus for this, staff would be happy to return at a future meeting with a requisite resolution and other items to move forward with an election. And we would also ask if you would like to engage in some of the additional considerations, namely whether polling, outreach, or a survey is desired. Next slide. Thank you. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have public comment? I see our audience has dwindled considerably.
I see that as well. We do have public comment, Mr. Mayor. Inga Lawrenson-Doimer, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you. I say we do a special election. You guys, you vote unanimously to do that for the sales tax measure. I don't think you need any polling on it. And I think we lose so much money daily by not having it been done, right? That it is time to just bite the bullet and pay the money for a special election. The other 2 items can certainly wait until June or whatever. And as far as polling and surveys, they're going to get a vote. Public outreach is a good thought, but in this sales tax one, just get it as soon as possible. We lose too much money by not doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I see no other hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. Public comment closed, Your Honor?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'm still seeing a timer. Get rid of that, maybe.
I'm sure our city clerk will take the timer down.
Okay, so this is my thought on this. I think we need to go to a special election for the tax right away, as fast as possible under a fiscal emergency. I do not think we need polling for that. They've already voted for it once and supported it with a pretty good majority. So that would be my first thing, kind of breaking them up by three. The cannabis also, there's been heavy support for cannabis by the voters as well. So I don't really think we need polling for that either. I think that I wouldn't put that with the tax because I think I would like the tax, in my view, I'd like the tax to be on its own. But considering cannabis perhaps at the general, I don't think we need any polling, and housing, because it has to go through planning commission at the general in November. And I perhaps polling there, that's the only one I think that we need any kind of polling for. So that would be the way I would do it. Cannabis in November, housing November, the tax as soon as possible under fiscal emergency with no polling. Thank you.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. And before I begin with my questions and comment, I do have a statement I'd like to share. As the city has not taken responsibility for or acknowledged the errors regarding Measure L, I would like to apologize for these mistakes. The vote and support of our residents are invaluable to me, and I am sorry for any carelessness. With regards to the status of the Cannabis Outreach Subcommittee, I don't recall seeing anything from them. I apologize if I missed something, but
that's on our next agenda, Jenny, next meeting.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Coletti. And then with regards to the time constraints to not be able to participate on April 5th, if the city manager, can you elaborate what those time constraints are?
You could make an April meeting, Councilmember McAdams, through the mayor. It is possible. It just would be tight. There is a resolution that the city council has to adopt. There is I believe the city attorney will have to jump in on this one. It's a 30-day period after the resolution is adopted. I seem to recall. It is possible. We just thought that, with the amount of items that you have on some of these upcoming agendas with the holidays and so forth, it wasn't easy to make the April, but you could do it.
Thank you for that, Mr. City Manager. So I would like to see the sales tax measure brought back to the voters as quickly as possible. And so if April is a possibility, the city, we're losing $80,000 to $100,000 per month. So for me, I think to be timely and to move as quick as possible is prudent of us. Regarding the other two items, I definitely support them going on the ballot. I don't want them to hold up the sales tax measure though. And, if staff could have, it sounds like it wouldn't have the housing, the open space measure, but if the cannabis measure could be ready, I'm fine with that. And if not, I'm happy to wait for both of them to go on the November ballot. So for me, really the priority is the sales tax measure. And then just to confirm and to put on record, it would not be Measure L again, correct? It would be given a new letter. Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for that. I think that would be important that the public know. So thank you.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thanks, Mayor. I don't think that the sales tax item should go with these other two items. I'm very worried about the turnout in the special election. You know, the best situation, I think, the most input you get is in a general election, particularly in a presidential year. But this is not that. So November, you know, is the best case, I think. So we get the most input from our citizens, and but at the same time, I understand I don't want to throw more money down the drain, and so in order to see the tax measure through, I think it should stand alone in a special election, and I'm pretty hard over on that. I don't want these other items with it. So, and then I totally agree with April. If there's anything else on our agendas leading up to it that are, those items should be moved. This should be the number one item after consent agenda on our agendas to ratify and approve and go forward with with April if it's doable. So the city attorney's on here. I am looking to his counsel if it's not, you know, is it a good idea to push for April, or is it asking too much? Can I ask that of the city attorney?
We have prepared a revised draft measure. It is ready to be submitted to the Department of Tax and Fee Administration for prior approval. I don't know what their timing is to do that, but I believe that there is enough time to both submit it to them for approval and to have this on your April 5th ballot. I do have a concern that you need to be authorizing that at a regular meeting. And I'm not certain what your regular meeting schedule is going to be in January.
So we have a meeting January 17th. It's the only one. If we were to authorize that in January, on January 17th, is that enough time?
I believe the city clerk has a response.
Thank you. Through the mayor. My agenda report from September 1st says that we have a filing deadline for a resolution, and this filing deadline is to file the resolution with the elections office by January 7th, 2022. It requires a resolution 88 days prior, no later than 88 days prior to the election. So for April 5th, that deadline would be January 7th.
And we'd have to back it up a bit. So it would have to come at the next meeting, the December meeting.
Sorry, if I'm understanding this correctly, Ms. Kendall, is it that you have to pass the resolution and then wait 88 days, or is the other way around?
The resolution must be passed and filed with the elections department no later than 88 days.
Oh, okay.
Prior to April.
And April, it's June 7th. So December 15th is when we would need to do that for the April election. But we're ready to do that if we shuffle some things around on the next agenda, is what I'm hearing.
Through the mayor, yes, I believe we could do that. I need to take another look at the December 15th meeting to remind myself, but if that's council's will, we can certainly move some items.
Okay, I feel like if we're going to declare a fiscal emergency and have 7 folks, you know, unanimously approve a special election, we should do it for April rather than June. And again, I'd like it to be its own thing. And then as far as cannabis and housing, have that be on the general election in November. Thanks, Mayor.
Councilmember Paduri.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a question. Actually, City Manager, you have your hand up. Did you want to comment?
Councilmember Paduri, I just wanted to, through the mayor, I just wanted to go back to the city attorney on a procedural question related to the last question that was asked about the December 15th meeting. In the event that a council member is not present at the meeting, due to scheduled absence, is a unanimous vote the number of folks who are present?
My understanding through Michael Colantuno, that he confirms my understanding that it is a majority of those present and voting.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Padura. I just wanted to ask that before that one got away from us. Thank you.
Sure. And maybe this is to you, Ben, so maybe you can keep yourself unmuted, but I wanted to know, is there any timing consideration, especially concerning the zoning district that we're doing, modifying zoning districts for affordable housing?
Councilman Perduri, not that I'm aware of. We would like, if council wants to move in that direction, we would like to work through the housing manager and Baird and Driscoll and the city's task force on that item. It does need to go through the planning commission as stated before. But as far as an urgency as to when that one needs to go, no, there is not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, so with that, I'm also in favor of like doing April and November. So the sales tax in April and the cannabis and the zoning in November. Thank you.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Your Honor. So city attorney, as I understand it, we would have to authorize an election at a regularly scheduled meeting no sooner than 88 days before the proposed election. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what is your immediate knowledge about how the ballot would be done? Would it be done exclusively by mail? Is that still part of any state statute that was passed due to COVID?
I have not researched that for this purpose. Perhaps Sandra knows, but I have not.
I believe there's new legislation that I just had an opportunity to review through the mayor, and it requires elections departments to send mail ballots to everyone, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is a mail-in only.
No, understood, but every registered voter would get a mail-in ballot.
That's my understanding. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good, because that kind of alleviates some of the concerns that were voiced by Councilmember Thomas. Certainly special elections do, and there are strategies to hold elections at special elections to suppress the vote. But if everyone is going to get a ballot by mail, then that kind of, that doesn't make me worry as much. I will note that both Monterey and Carmel did their half-cent sales tax increase at a April special election. I do think we should do this as soon as possible. So I'm kind of part of the consensus here. And quite frankly, I think everything should be in the tube ready to go on this. I mean, we've known about, the staff has known about this for over a year. We've known since the hearing where Measure L did not, where the judge basically said no dice for resurrecting Measure L. That was November 9th. So everything should, in fact, this should be like, just like, okay, tomorrow we're doing this, we're ready to proceed. And if that's not the case, then I'm going to be really, really disappointed. This council has given staff advance notice on this and our expectations and concerns. You know, we couldn't have expressed that any more than we did. So I don't want to hear any excuses. This should be ready to go tomorrow. With that said, I would want the city attorney to get back to us ASAP on the question of an urgency vote count. It's my understanding that the entire council would have to make that determination. And if there's not a member present, and I think that's all in the election code. So I'd like to have that verified, and I'd like to see an email tomorrow morning letting us know what the situation on that is, because that's very important. Although maybe not, maybe everyone's going to be at the December 17th meeting. I plan on being there, or December 15th meeting. So I would support an immediate go forward for an April 5th election on the sales tax, half-cent sales tax, the cannabis sales tax, and cannabis advisory vote at a general election in November. And then I'd like to discuss a little bit more, because this zoning measure is there's not a lot of detail in the staff report, and I certainly haven't got any other additional information on it. So I think in 1986, the voters approved Measure D, which requires a vote of the people to rezone any land zoned open space or U unclassified. So what is the intent of staff? Is that to overturn Measure D completely? Is it to carve out an exception? What is the exact plan for that?
Councilmember Coletti, through the mayor. To be clear, this is not a staff intent. This is from the Welcome Home strategy.
Well, okay, whatever you want to call it. Staff is bringing this to council right now, so that's what I'm saying. So what is the what are you planning on doing with this?
So as I was saying, the proposal is to allow housing in zones where it's currently not allowed. And I believe the two that you mentioned, housing is not allowed. I believe there's a couple other zones, and I don't remember the title of the districts, but notably those where the school has facilities and those where the city has facilities where housing is not allowed currently. There could potentially, if the zoning rules were changed, be the opportunity for some potential housing opportunities in those zones as well.
Okay, so are we talking about taking space that is already zoned open space or unclassified, that's U, O or U, which currently, per Measure D in 1986, requires a vote of the people to rezone that? Are you talking about allowing that for all parcels zoned O or U, or just specific parcels that are zoned?
That would remain to be determined, and I would want to defer to the housing manager in Baird plus Driscoll and the task force on that. So the specifics of exactly how that would come forward are intentionally vague. The concept, and this is just a concept review, is just simply creating additional affordable housing opportunities now where they're not available.
Well, and as a tagline, I would support that, obviously, but the devil's in the details, and quite frankly, there's not a lot of opportunity on open space for that. Although Anastasia, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. For instance, I can just present to you a couple scenarios that might resonate. So the school district has some property that potentially might be a good location, of course, with their input for affordable housing. Similarly, so does the city of Pacific Grove. We have some property that potentially could be where their city facilities currently that could potentially be an affordable housing location, the community center. And this is just potential stuff, of course. I'm not, this is just hypothetical, what if type stuff, but it is possible.
Would there be pickleball courts at the new housing at the community center?
I would highly recommend that there would be a robust recreation component for that. I believe that the deed restriction certainly actually requires it at that site. But yes, absolutely. And all, kidding aside, I think that might be a great location potentially, with access to the school, transit lines, etc.
Yeah. Anyway, that it's been brought up before, but getting back to school district sites and open space, city space, not so much the community center. I think that parcel actually came from the Forest Hill Manor as part of the deed transfer. But there are deed restrictions on the majority of our open space. Certainly the majority of all our coastal properties that were given to us or sold to us at well below market rates by either the Pacific Improvement Company or Del Monte Properties, those all came with deed restrictions that those will always remain open space. Same is true for the golf course, for instance. Now, I do remember when Anastasia was working on the LCP, there was some discussion about making, opening up maybe some of the area at the end of the old tracks, the old railroad tracks at there at Cynics, and maybe putting housing there if we could. I just wanted to, this is going to take a lot of analysis, and it's going to take a lot of digging into the deeds and covenants on these properties, and so true for the school district. I think both David Avenue and Lighthouse School, I believe both of those were given to the school district through the Del Monte Properties with the deed restriction on it. So there's just a lot to do to determine what parcels would be available. So I would like to see, if this does go forward, I'd like to see a specific targeted area or areas defined, and then work from there instead of just opening this up and just basically a blanket measure to cancel Measure D. So out of all of these, I'm most concerned with the zoning one. So I would definitely like to see staff come back with their recommendations on what they really intend to do with this as soon as possible, because November will creep up faster than any of us can imagine. So sooner the better on that one. And of course, like you have already mentioned, it has to go to the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Councilmember Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to get some clarity. So the sales tax, it sounds to me that has to go to a special election in April. Am I correct, Mr. Arby? Or
Councilmember Emilio, through the mayor, that is an option. If it does come at your next meeting, you could make the April special election. Yes.
Okay, then the second question is, the second part, the creation, well, it would be like allow one recreational use dispensary, creation of a special cannabis tax. It is the next special election would be in June.
Councilmember Emilio, through the mayor again. No, the next one is in April. You could potentially put both those on the April election. I'm hearing some discussion from your colleagues that perhaps maybe others are looking at the November general election for the cannabis tax potentially, but you could, in theory, put them both on the April special election if council wanted to.
Yeah, my feeling is we should put that on the April election. I know it sounds like everybody wants the sales tax, but I think once and for all, we need to find out from the voters about the cannabis. And that should be in an April election. I might be the lone wolf on this, but I believe that needs to be.
Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
Your Honor, I'd like to take a stab at a motion. I'm going to do three different things here with it. So first, I'm going to give this a shot. I wouldn't really have a recommended action, but I would say direct staff to come back to us with a ballot measure to be on the April special election as a fiscal emergency. And if we need to clarify that, and obviously it has to be done by December 15th. If we need further clarification, I'll come back. Number two, would be to direct staff to come back with a ballot measure for the November general election for the cannabis matter. And thirdly, direct staff to provide further information regarding the housing measure so that we can have a little bit more information before we direct staff to come back with a ballot measure as to housing. And that would be, and I'm willing to talk about that.
And I'll second all those three motions. Let me repeat them, just so make sure we're all on the same page. Motion one would be to direct staff to return with a ballot measure under fiscal emergency for the April, I'm not sure the date, but for the April election. And then motion number two was to direct staff to prepare a ballot measure for cannabis tax at the November general election.
Yes, Your Honor.
And number three, direct staff to provide information on a housing ballot measure.
Yes, Your Honor.
Or potential ballot measure.
Yes, Your Honor, that's my motion.
Councilmember Coletti.
Just to clarify the cannabis issue a little bit, there would be a tax measure, obviously, but there was also a discussion of an advisory vote. So there would be two measures, or two measures on the ballot. One would be just up or down, do you approve the cannabis? It would be a very narrowly focused question. And then if that passes, then obviously the tax measure itself, if passed, would be implemented. Presumably, if the electorate wants cannabis, they'll vote for yes for both. But that has been kind of the direction that we've been following or thinking of following, is that there would be an advisory vote on cannabis plus the tax measure itself. And council needs to determine what that tax amount is going to be. Is it going to be 5, 6, 7, 8%? That's still TBD as well. So to the maker of the motion, is that your understanding as well when you say cannabis measure?
I apologize that, I didn't have the specifics. I was kind of thinking that staff would work with the committee to bring back what the intentionality would be on the ballot measure. And I was hoping that you guys could give the input at that point. That's kind of what I was trying to take a broad brush on it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
As the second, I agree with Councilmember Coletti and Mayor Pro Tempore Smith. We have time to flesh out the details, but we need both the advisory vote and the cannabis tax. So 2 items. That was my understanding. Councilmember Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor. I would support the sales tax, but Councilman Coletti said it right. Being on the subcommittee, that's what we talked about, and we'll be discussing. But I don't want to see that item. I think it needs to be brought back to the voters in the future. I think that's important, not to forget. So I guess we'll be talking about it at the next council meeting, I believe. I wish I still wish it would be on this particular ballot. That's my PS on the bottom of this. So
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess so I don't lose sleep of it. I want to know whether we have an issue or not regarding attendance on December 15th. It was brought up. Is that because there's an expected person that's not going to be there? Can I ask, is everyone planning to be at the meeting? Is anyone planning to miss the meeting?
I don't want to miss it for the world.
Okay, I still believe looking into it is, you know, a good idea, but at least I won't lose sleep over it tonight. So I support the motion and I'm ready for a vote. Thanks, Mayor.
It'd be good for the holidays.
Okay, we have a vote, please. And we're
Yes,
voting
sir.
on the three motions together.
Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Aye.
Council Members Emilio,
Aye.
Coletti,
Yes, aye.
McAdams,
Aye.
Baduri,
Aye.
Tomlinson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. And that brings us to item 13B, council alternatives for regional and state agencies and associations. Councilmember Peduri.
Thank you, Mayor. And can I ask Sandra to pull up the presentation, please, if you can?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Great. So we're here to talk about council alternates. Maybe go to the next slide. And really, I wanted to stress a few things here. One is I've noticed that we don't have alternates, generally speaking, I've noticed that a couple of items at least. So I wanted to make sure that the council is aware that alternates are also part of integral structure to the council itself. So why have alternates really? One is think of the council as a team. We're all working as a team towards one goal. So the alternates are like backups. They help the team in one way. They're the building blocks that help the team. These are also systemic in nature, which means that we are all parts of a whole, but the parts need to be working together so that we can achieve a common purpose or common goal. And when we look at a team itself, like when we work together, it brings synergy. And what that means is the sum total of all parts here, whatever we're doing when we work in a synergistic fashion, we realize more than just the sum itself. Next slide, please. And then I wanted to also mention that communication between primary and alternates and the council itself, this allows really, in the grand scheme of things, it is a success story for the council. And really, we're working towards building trust between each other and really from a dynamic between council as well as the citizens that we represent. We're building that trust climate between all of us. And so next slide, please. So when we talk about alternates today, today's agenda really is think of alternates as like backups. Who do you go to when you can't make a particular meeting, for instance? And so what I've noticed is for League of California Cities, this is a future need, but it appears that we have typically have a primary voting delegate, but we don't have alternates. So perhaps the recommendation here is that in the future, I'm stressing to the council that when it comes to volunteering for any particular item or conference, etc., try to be an alternate as well. You never know when the time comes. And from a present need perspective, I've noticed that Monterey Salinas Transit today has only one primary representative. So perhaps we can decide upon whether an alternate needs to be there. I'm more than happy to jump into the fray over there. And then just in general, what happens if we don't have both primary and alternates? At least somebody needs to keep the council apprised as to the goings on. So my recommendation from just a communication perspective is that perhaps give a heads up to the council. That just makes the council whole again. And if that is not achievable, perhaps provide a post-event report stating that XYZ happened or did not happen. And that really, again, brings integrity into the equation. So really the scope and discussion for today's agenda is to make sure that we have alternates, make sure we're volunteering as much as we can, make sure we apprise each other of what is going on. Thank you.
Do we have any public comment?
I do see a hand raised, Mr. Mayor. Andrew Gonzalez, you have the floor.
I was just wondering if, would it be realistic to say that we're going to have in-person meetings within like 4 months?
We don't usually answer that, but I certainly hope so.
Okay. That's all.
Thank you. I see no other hands raised.
All right, bring back to council discussion. Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Pedori. I think everything you said sounds like good best practices to adopt. I think having alternates is a great idea. It makes me wonder about even alternates for the boards and commissions. And while maybe they wouldn't be, they could be expressed alternates or chosen alternates, but or potentially, you know, if you know you're not going to be able to go and be the representative to that board or commission on a particular month due to a conflict, you know, having the feeling that you could go to a fellow council member and ask them to step in and take you know, be present and sort of take that meeting for you and do a little bit of back and forth. Obviously, it's best if the primary is there for continuity, but it would feel nice to have backup options among us. So I like the idea of having a primary and an alternate. And I think the recommended action is to adopt that as a best practice. I definitely support that. And then for the regional meeting, I mean, every regional board is a little different. I mean, I guess for 3CE, I do have 2 backups. The city of Carmel and the city of Monterey as the secondary, and the city of Monterey as the third area. So that one, I have backups that aren't within this council, but it's a nice thing to have, you know, when you can't go to those meetings. So yeah, I think that it's a good best practice. Thanks.
Councilmember Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor. Oops.
Looks like Councilmember Emilio is having technical difficulties.
We need a backup from him.
Councilmember Emilio, we're waiting for you.
Sorry about that, Mayor. I accidentally pressed the wrong button there. So in regards to MST, it is a different type of board. I have to admit, when I started there approximately 3 years ago, it really took a while to get used to it. Robert Hewitt was my alternate, but it ended up that there was only once I had to use him and he wasn't available. So what happens, there's 13 agencies that are represented everywhere from Greenfield, city of Greenfield, all the way up. And there has been a couple of agencies that have not had alternatives, but there's usually always been a majority to vote. Now, I see Chaps is willing to be the alternate. That would be great. The agenda reports are always online for the MST, and it takes a while to get used to it. because if you're not familiar with what's gone on the month before, I'm just referring it to the MST. It's a pretty large organization, but it'd be great to have a backup because there might be a meeting in May I may miss. I don't know yet, but I'll let you know.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. And then also on your list, the Monterey County Business Council. So the city is a member and any council member can attend their events and or meetings, but the city of Pacific Grove is not on their board. Their board consists, and you can go to their website, their board really consists of business community members, hospitality members, ag members, basically industry folks. So the city as a whole is a member of the Monterey County Business Council, and any of us are welcome to participate in their events and quarterly lunches. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember McAdams. So following this agenda report, the mayor enlightened me on a few things related to CJPIA, Monterey County Business Council, as well as 3CE, which is why the presentation does not include those. So appreciate the information, but understood. Thank you.
I'll use this as an opportunity to make a plug for any council member wishing to write a short report on an important topic from their respective boards. And things like, well, we're highlighting MST tonight, so we'd love to get an update on the surf line when that comes up, bus line along Highway 1, arena numbers, for example, what's happening at the recycling plant, for example. So, and the and Highway 156 update, always a number of things of interest to the community. Would welcome to see a report in our agenda, even if it's only on consent. Okay, any other council discussion? There's no action item, but I will take this, Councilmember Pedori. I heard you volunteer for the MST alternate, and Councilmember Emilio approving that. So I will prepare the documentation for our next meeting. Thank you. Councilmember Tomlinson.
I'm sorry to reattack, but I'll just say that if any council member for a boards or commission can't make a meeting and they need an alternate, I'll be happy to stand in.
Okay. All right, I think we're on to item 13C, Task Force for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Councilmember Pedori.
Thank you again, Mayor. Sandra, I would need your assistance again if you could pull up the presentation. Or if she's not there, I could.
I've got it right here. Sorry about that. I have us on mute.
Oh, no worries. Thank you. Okay, great. So I wanted to just give some background as to what is going on with the DEI task force. The council had basically formed this, voted to bring this task force into being. The appointments were completed on 7th of July. The DEI task force met as a group on 16th August. Really, that meeting was more, I would say, just ministerial, making sure everybody understands what the decorum is, etc. But to date, there have been 4 meetings that the DEI has met. These are all monthly meetings. Next slide, please. And a couple of things that have come up so far, which you may have noticed, is that Pacific Grove now celebrates Indigenous Peoples Day. The DEI group is also in the process of raising community awareness in general through education and by other means. One of the things that the task force does is whenever possible, they provide educational material or topics of interest or books that they recommend to the general audience to state that this is how we can all understand each other better, be more tolerant of all races around us, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. And there are in progress items, and this is where this agenda item is actually going towards, is that the group is working towards the basically recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month. As a matter of fact, whether it needs to be called Hispanic, whether it needs to be called Latinx, whether it needs to be called Latin, these are all things that the group is reviewing essentially, just to make sure that we're not omitting a particular race or for a particular section of the group, etc. And then the other two items, which are really kind of ingrained within Pacific Grove. One is the Chinese fishing village recognitions. And all of you may know, Jerry Losabado was a vocal proponent here, and the group is trying to make sure that we're recognizing the folks that have brought such items into consideration, really making sure that everything is tied in from a community perspective. And then the future of Feast of Lanterns, again, something that we all know, but there is a history behind Feast of Lanterns. So all of this requires, in many aspects, it requires community dialogue. It requires the community to contribute to what needs to happen next. And really that will drive the future of whatever is going on from a DEI group perspective. And what I want really, the reason why I'm bringing this up now rather than later is I don't want the DEI group to be in any shape or fashion really seeing this end date of a July 2022 to be in the way of whatever they're doing. So if a topic such as the Feast of Lanterns is going to take them 6 to 12 months, so be it. But I want them to succeed in what they're doing, and I want the entire community behind whatever they're doing so that we get the proper outcome. And so, which is why, if we go to the next slide, is there a next slide? Okay, so what I'm recommending is that the task force sunset date has a date of July 1st, 2022. So I recommend that we remove the sunset date. If we all come to a consensus on this, then I can direct the city attorney to change the appropriate resolution. Thank you.
You're muted, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have any public comment on this item?
Yes, sir. Lisa Ciani, you have the floor.
Welcome.
There it goes. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. I am so glad to see this agenda item to extend the DEI task force to be a permanent body, and I appreciate Councilmember Paduri bringing it to council. I hope all the council members have been able to attend at least one DEI meeting or watched a recording. The task force members are definitely doing a stellar job, as Councilmember Paduri wrote, and their important work will clearly require much more time on an ongoing basis for the complex and sensitive tasks they're undertaking. I urge council to approve Councilmember Paduri's recommendation. And I hope council will also consider increasing the task force membership to 7 members. Members have expressed their wish that they could have subcommittees of more than 2 members in order to work most effectively on particularly complex issues. Considering the groundbreaking work they're undertaking and the great interest that was reportedly shown in serving on the task force when applications were accepted, it could be a significant benefit with little effort on the city's part to increase the DEI membership in February to allow for more extensive collaboration on challenging issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Inga Lawrence and Doimer, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you. Another interesting one, because I am not ready to make it permanent. I think that it could be extended and see where it's going, but I don't think we have enough information yet on what actually they're doing. I mean, I have attended the meetings. Yes, I missed one. But I don't think it's ready for permanency. I think it just, the sunset date could be extended to really see where it's going still, because frankly, I'm not sure where it is yet. And yes, it's very important work. I don't think they quite have their parameters and what they're doing yet. And it's going to take them, yes, a couple more meetings to figure that out, especially with process, because we're talking about some fairly, well, I would say new people. But, well, I don't think it should be permanent yet. I think it can be extended though. And as far as more members, well, we still run into subcommittees and Brown Act and all those kinds of things. So that has to be kept in mind of making it even bigger. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
No other hands raised, Mayor.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Pedori and Councilmember McAdams for, hatching this all together. And I'm just so pleased to hear that there is plenty of work to be done, that it's moving forward, that's being addressed, it's being taken care of. And I fully support making it permanent. There's no harm in that. We dissolved a board earlier a couple months ago, the golf advisory board. So if 2 years or 3 years from now, the diversity, equity, and inclusion board that we make permanent no longer has much of a mission or a need, then we can dissolve it. I don't think that will be the case in the environment and world we live in. So I think there will be plenty to keep them busy, but I think you can go both ways. Just, not make it permanent and decide later, or I'd rather go with make it permanent and then we can dissolve it later if needed, because that gives the folks on the committee some buy-in, and it also shows the importance of it for our community, and allows folks to take the proper amount of time to do it right, to get the community's input and get the right outcome. I love the way that you said that, Councilmember Pedori, and so I support this recommended action to make it permanent. As far as going to 7 members, if we have interests, I think that's fine, completely fine with me. I would say, I know Ms. Ciani said that the board wants it. I believe she probably knows from listening. And so that makes me want to support it just fine. I know it's hard sometimes to fill the slate of all our boards and commissions. We don't have enough applicants for positions. Some boards and commissions are more popular or more applied for than others. If this one has a long, a waiting list, then by all means, I think having 7 heads working together is a great thing. So, thank you.
I just want to note for the record that the Mayor Pro Tempore Smith is no longer at our meeting. And he told me ahead of time that he had another obligation. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. And there's nothing more that I would like to see is for this to be a permanent commission. It was difficult in the beginning to get it going, and we had a working group first. And even after the working group, there was still a little hesitancy, which is why the temporary task force was how that came about. So I absolutely support this, and I am very pleased to see the work that they're doing. The DEI is definitely rolling up their sleeves and having some very important discussions in our community. So if the desire is there and the mayor feels confident that we can add 2 more commissioners, I am happy to do that. I am fine with waiting till July. I don't see any reason why at that time it wouldn't become permanent or become, be extended, or, we can do it now, whichever is fine. But, they are doing good work, and Councilmember Pedori is right. Some discussions, especially, regarding events, the Feast of Lanterns, how diversity and equity can be brought into City Hall, our procurement, our hiring. I mean, there is a lot there to work on. So, and these topics are very complicated, and you have to be patient. You have to have these sort of delicate conversations, because not everybody, like as we heard a public comment, are supportive of this. So, I'm happy to do either way. I'm just really happy that we have the DEI. So whichever capacity we keep it, we can prolong it now or later. So thank you.
Councilmember Emilio.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'm ready to make a motion on this item.
Sure.
Okay. I'd like to make a recommendation. The Task Force for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion become a permanent body.
A second.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Your Honor. What staff is currently supporting this? Is that the city manager? Is the city manager, is he on? So you would continue supporting this committee then going forward, city manager?
Councilmember Coletti, through the mayor, it's actually not only me, but the city clerk and also the deputy city attorney. All 3 of us, although not always all together, but the 3 of us work together to support the task force.
And that's not a problem as far as you're concerned.
It's fine. Thank you.
Okay. And there are currently 5 members. Is that right? Is there a council member on the committee as well? Just 5 civilians, essentially, correct? And we do have we would appoint a liaison, official liaison, once the board or commission was created. Is that correct?
Councilmember Pedori is our council liaison.
And that would remain that way. But I mean, it's a task force right now, so it's not a commission yet. But that would remain that way as well. I'm just trying to get the nuts and bolts of this, Mayor, okay? So once it became a commission, there would be a council liaison. I fully expect Councilmember Pedori to continue with that. I'm just trying to understand where this is headed. I don't have a problem doing this now. We haven't really gotten a product from them yet. And I'd like to see exactly what the results are before you kind of commit. But I do agree this is probably something that is going to would actually get approved come July. So if it is urgent, if Councilmember Pedori feels it has to happen now instead of in July, I'll take his word for it, and I'm ready to vote as well.
Councilmember Pedori.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to mention that if knowing that we're leaning towards a consensus, the additional item that I would like to include with the recommendation is to direct the city attorney to prepare a resolution pursuant to Section 3 of the DEI Ordinance 21-007.
I'll second that. It sounds like we need a second. So we've got 2 motions.
I already first it, right? And I agree with
Councilmember Emilio, I think you're breaking up, but anyhow, your motion was to approve the permanent as a permanent body, and Councilmember Pedori's motion was to direct the city attorney to prepare an ordinance.
If I may, can I amend my motion then? I wanted to add that to what Councilmember Emilio had. So recommend the task force for diversity, equity, inclusion become a permanent body and direct the city attorney to prepare a resolution.
They're both joined together, but yeah.
I agree
Yeah,
to
so,
that motion.
so technically you can't add to someone. The way you do this is you modify or amend the motion. So in your case, it would be, Councilmember Pedori, it would be you're amending the original motion by adding to it. And we would vote on that motion first.
Got it. So
does that make sense?
Yes, so I would like to amend the motion, and I would like to add that the statement to Councilmember Emilio's original motion, which is to direct the city attorney to prepare a resolution pursuant to Section 3 of the DEI Ordinance 21-007.
Okay. I don't have the code in front of me. You said resolution. Doesn't the code have the end date? Let me check. I think it would need an ordinance, but
I think the city attorney needs to come in on this because I believe it's already baked into the original formation that it becomes a permanent body, and we're just accelerating that.
I thought it read that it has a sunset date. So
I have not researched this for now. My recollection is that there is a date by which it becomes a permanent body unless it is contrary actions taken. My understanding of the motion is that this would provide direction to accelerate that decision.
Correct.
And I believe that the direction in the motion is sufficient for us to come back to you with an implementing document. Whether that will be a ordinance or a resolution, we will make certain that it's in accord with the prior action that was taken.
Okay, I'm just looking online, and that's interesting. I don't see the end date online. That's chapter 3.46. Okay. Councilmember Pedori, have you spoken with the task force members about this?
I've not spoken directly, no, but everybody is the last meeting that went in, they were certainly talking about issues spanning months. So I would I haven't spoken directly though.
Okay, well, just an observation. The word inclusion means talking to people, and it would be good to talk to them because we're going to be asking them to serve longer. So perhaps, well, I'll send them an email, or you can send them an email, copy me, find out what their willingness is in terms of serving past June of next year.
Just for my benefit. Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but just I was going to ask for my benefit. Me talking to the DEI task force members, does that constitute a Brown Act violation?
Just ask them. No, just ask them if, or I'll do it. Just ask them if they're willing to serve past June.
Okay. They're actually been appointed for 2 years, so they're technically through 2023.
Oh, that's right. You're absolutely right. Perfect. Okay.
Your Honor.
So, Councilmember Coletti.
So I just point out section 3A of our original ordinance 21-007 reads as follows. This ordinance shall sunset and have no further force on or effect on July 1st, 2022, unless the council on or before June 30th, 2022, chooses to adopt a resolution designating the task force to be a permanent body. So that's, I guess, where we're at.
All right, may we have a vote, please?
Did we separate the motions or is it all combined at this point?
We're voting on the amended motion from Councilmember Pedori, and I'm not sure who seconded
I did.
that. Councilmember Tomlinson.
Okay. Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith. Oh, sorry, he's absent.
Absent.
Council members Emilio,
Aye.
Coletti,
Aye.
McAdams,
Aye.
Peduri,
Aye.
Tomlinson. Motion carries 601 with Mayor Pro Tem Smith absent.
And the original motion, I'm not sure what the right word is. We don't act on the original motion, becomes superfluous. Okay. Moving on to the next item, that's 13D, Complete Streets Projects. Councilmember Pedori.
Thank you, Mayor. And Sandra, if you could pull up the next slide too. Great, thank you. So I'm excited to share that I've been selected to an institute called the Champions Institute, and I just wanted to provide some background there. So the Champions Institute is actually formed in a collaboration between the CDC and a company called Smart Growth America. Now CDC has an initiative called Active People, Healthy Nations. Really, by the initiative is through 2027. They really want people to be more active and really are working towards making sure that the message is propagated throughout the United States. And they're doing this by partnerships with several organizations to make things happen. And one of those organizations is Smart Growth America. It's a nonprofit based in Washington, DC, works very closely with the Department of Transportation, the CDC, and so on and so forth to bring in initiatives that help cities and communities. Next slide, please. So this training program for which I was selected, it spans roughly 6 to 12 months. It's a moving kind of target because the last session is really like a on-site kind of project / exercise, but it's roughly between 6 to 12 months. The intent is to learn about what Complete Streets actually is, and the program is targeted towards elected officials. The intent is to actually have the elected officials become what is the reason why it's called Champions Institute, is to have the elected officials become a champion within their community to initiate and move on with propagating the word. And again, this is not really confined to, I would say, a community or city. The intent is once an elected official is part of this program, they are provided support in some sense throughout the course of their tenure or even later, so that they can continue with the good work, not only within their city, but really within the region too. But really from a training program perspective, it officially like culminates with project work. However, there are resources, and those resources are kind of materials but really a broader resource from my view is really the networking that you build through this program, because you're not only like getting to know like other community members like you that are working on similar aspects in other cities. They're also facing the same problems that we do, like but certain infrastructure not there. Maybe like just like we have Highway 68 flowing through our town, they have similar kind of problems. And really, this is a collective body with this collective networking concept, and that is really bringing in the fruits of their labor to the table. Next slide, please. So complete streets, if you're looking at it at a periphery, really what I am going to examine is really what our city is doing with respect to the vision itself. Are we in the right aligned in the right direction from a complete streets perspective? Where are we with policy? Where are we with standards? But that's really an examination of all the documents and material that we have and how we are following them. But if you go to the next slide, the intent is to really look into some projects that we can develop as a basis of these standards to do the next thing. And so some of the things that popped up essentially are this is an ongoing thing that I've seen ever since I've been here, is the intersection at Congress and Sunset that is really problematic and in a lot of aspects. And I do want to see some kind of like moving forward plan on what we need to do there. There's not enough even volunteers to help, and it's right by the school. Another concept item I have is a bike loop in town. I originally came from a town called Davis, and what really fascinated me rather with that town is really the entire town was interconnected via a bike loop. And it was really a healthy way for everybody to go about town, to be active and really see all the sights in town too. So maybe that's something that we can consider here. I know we have kind of like ups and downs with respect to the hills here, but perhaps this might work. The other option is the multimodal options. Again, something that interests me, because as you look at being active, it's not really about the car. It's more about you as an individual. How can you become active? Well, and that may not necessarily be a car. It could be a bike, it could be walking, it could be running, whatever you want to think. So I want to explore some options here for downtown PG where we're focusing on the individual rather than the car. Next slide, please. So which kind of brings me to today's agenda. I'm looking to the way forward here, and my intent is to actually work with the city staff for what can we scope out from a project perspective. And again, I use the term project kind of loosely. To me, really, the intent is to see what is there that we can do. And with this additional broader resource that I would have coming in from Smart Growth America, potentially there may be more ideas than perhaps we have realized, and some ideas to be copied perhaps from other cities too. So the intent would be to work with the city staff and bring these projects to the council review as part of the CIP plan for fiscal year 22-23. Again, with the understanding that like some projects may not necessarily be a 1 year kind of item, it could span across years. But the intent is to actually at least start with the projects and start them in the right way, so we're doing the right thing for the community. So that's it. Thank you.
Do we have any public comments?
Yes, Inga Lawrence-Doimer, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you. I think I'd like to suggest to Councilmember Paduri that he attend more Traffic and Safety Commission meetings, because they have, discussed quite often the five-way intersection there and what can be done, and the problems with Highway 68 and things like that. So maybe he could give some input into that to help, because certainly they've been kicking it around and looked at many options. And one other thing that I have a question on is, under the goal alignment on this report, it says facilitate local business recovery review and revise existing policies and programs and develop a strategic plan to better serve existing businesses. I would have thought that the goal alignment would be community health and safety, but I'm not quite sure how this is all focused toward business. So thank you.
Thank you.
I see no other hands raised, Mr. Mayor. Oh, I'm sorry, I do see one. Kim, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you guys. I think we need to hear a lot more on this. I would be concerned about a lot of changes being done down on Lighthouse. I mean, there are a lot of cars down there already. We have the parkolettes. We really need to focus on our cypress trees down there and give them a little help. I'm not exactly sure what this is meaning, but if you mean to put bike lanes down there, I think we're asking for trouble with all that traffic. It is a tourist town. There will be a lot of cars, especially on Lighthouse. Maybe for Pine Street, that would be fine because it's a bigger, wider street. But, you know, Lighthouse used to be a really beautiful street with our lush trees, and everything is changing down there and getting more hectic, more dangerous for pedestrians and the cars. I think we need to hear a lot more about this plan before we move forward.
Thank you.
I see no other hands, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, I keep popping up. Bob Oliver, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, I ran for city council in Monterey in 1990, and we were kicking these same kind of issues around. And of course, everybody had a new solution at the time for a problem that only got worse as more and more development was created. And we just got to the point where we are today, which is going through that the new Monterey corridor of Lighthouse is sometimes it's a 20-minute ordeal. You don't have that kind of traffic here yet, but with the amount of development that you've already planned, I think you're going to experience that. With the additional traffic and the small lanes you have right now, I'd like to hear a lot more on this plan because I don't see any way of it working. I don't understand it yet either. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see no other hands, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mayor. And so, Councilmember Pedori, I feel like what your report was great, and what you're sort of looking to do or have a nod to do is to, you know, focus energy of yours with some new resources, and resources that I agree with, that will, all resources are good, that would lead to ideas for the community to talk about and discuss as far as the Complete Streets projects. So, you know, I don't see this as Councilmember Pedori having to come up with all of the ideas and all of it on his own by any means. I think having somebody who will organize and work with staff and work with the community and do the outreach for 1 or 2 or 3 or however many projects that makes sense, as long as the community is involved and you know, council does its typical involvement as well, I think that's wonderful that you're volunteering and willing to do that. The Complete Streets is one that we've had on our goals ever since I've been here. And I do think that it runs the gamut from different, people have different ideas of what Complete Streets could mean. And I do think all of the ideas that I've heard make sense in that category. It's a broad category. So, one that I'm real interested in is just how to connect sidewalks and how to make them more accessible around the community, and where you don't have if you are pushing a stroller. I mean, I've never had such a hard time pushing a stroller anywhere than in Pacific Grove, with having to go off the curb with a sleeping baby. So yes, there's many different complete streets topics, and if you have concept reviews where the community can be engaged and council can be engaged, and I think that's wonderful. So thank you.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Pedori, for bringing this agenda report forward. It is good timing at the end of the year, I believe, and perhaps our Public Works, if he's still on here, they do a Google form, and it's sort of the call for capital improvement projects. I think that these would be good for you to submit to those. That is the process that we do, so all the council members can submit their ideas for CIP. As you know, we have a long list, and we also have a longer list of unfunded projects, unfortunately. So, but I definitely think that complete streets are important. I know for me, I've received that feedback too about trying to maneuver in a stroller or a wheelchair, just as far as like the sidewalks and walkability goes for our city. And something else that, I think is a good concept that could be explored is, making Ocean View at some section, one way, and to sort of add more, add a lane exclusively for, bicyclists. And then that way there's room on the recreation trail for walkers, because as we all know, the recreation trail is very busy and inundated, and we're seeing just more and more use. So I do think that at some point that is something that we will need to discuss and consider. But thanks for bringing this forward.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I admire any council member who's going to go off and champion a cause. And certainly all of us are open and available to do that. I'm not sure why we need to plug into this particular organization, though, to do that. As I understand, it's based out of Washington, D.C. Is that right? Smart Growth America?
Yes.
So what do they give us? What's the value added here? Do they plug us into money? Do they plug us into ideas? I mean, we go, as you know, we go through this whole CIP process every year, developing projects, capital improvement projects that we as a council see fit to fund. And I certainly applaud your willingness to dive deeper into, and as our TAMC representative, I'm sure you've got an interest in this, but what is the value added for, and how much is it going to cost us to partner? Because it seems like that's what you're asking us to do. It's to partner with this organization. Is it going to cost us any money?
No, so the city doesn't partner. This is a training program geared towards me. It's a free training program. There is no cost to the city. Okay. The intent is for following the program completion, I would be equipped with the tools or the knowledge to essentially champion any causes. And as part of that initiative, it is possible through Smart Growth America via the CDC to get some funding too. But that is a TBD item. It is really the first step order of the day is really to make sure that I understand what is going on from a complete streets perspective, and I understand what is going on from a complete street side with respect to the city of Pacific Grove. The second step, and those projects that I highlighted are just some that popped up into my mind. I appreciate everybody's ideas here, but the intent is really that, is to say, what are the potential concept ideas or projects that are in mind? How can I marry the training that I have received from the Institute, as well as the tools that I've received to make something happen for the city? And again, the intent is to, broadly speaking, is to make sure that we're all living an active life. I get the whole car business, but the intent is to make sure that we're active in every sense of the word.
Okay, so are you finished with this training already, or are you?
No, it isn't
ongoing?
It is in progress.
It's in progress. And you did go back to Washington, right? Did the city fund that for you to go back to Washington?
No, this is a virtual course.
Okay.
Being that it is a COVID environment, it's all virtual at the moment.
Well, seems to me that's fine. I appreciate you explaining it to me. I wasn't aware of what it was actually involved. So you're leveraging their training program to come up to speed on championing a project or two here in town. That seems fine. And if they can, if you can plug into them for potential resources, that'd be great. I'll champion my own plan, which has been always to develop a master plan for downtown to rejuvenate business there. But as long as there's no financial liability to the city, I think it's great that you're going off to pursue this. Thank you.
I'll echo the sentiments that you've just heard. Thank you very much for bringing this forward, and I greatly appreciate you stepping out and championing, supporting some potential projects here. And Complete Streets, as you know, chaps, have been on council goals for quite a while, and we've tried things, and we just need to keep trying. I'm thinking the big projects of Complete Streets that we tried was Pine Avenue. Councilmember Tomlinson mentioned that. We had to pivot, but I think we got some good things. We got some good results, 4-way stops at Congress and Pine and the Erdley median. And then also Highway 68, we learned that we're gonna need a boatload of money if we want to do something along Highway 68. And that includes the Congress, Cedar, and Sunset intersections. And you're absolutely right. Those are things that we've looked at before, and bringing fresh eyes. There's documentation on both of those projects. Maybe you can find a way to move them forward. I think it was Inga Lorenzen-Dahmer that mentioned the Traffic Safety Commission. They've been talking about bicycle lanes. We do have bicycle lanes in town. There's not too many, and they do talk about that. So I hope you'll connect with those folks on what they're doing and engage them. I think that would be very helpful. It's my understanding that that you'd like to bring these project recommendations, potential projects, to be evaluated as part of our CIP program. And I think that's great. As was mentioned by Councilmember McAdams, I believe we'll be starting that process. So we'll check with our city manager. Are we going to have that process of seeking the public, council, and boards, commissions ideas for CIP this year? And when might that happen?
Is that a question to me?
No, that's a question for Mr. Harvey. Are you
yes,
expecting
Mayor.
it? Will that happen again this year?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's anticipated to kick off first quarter 2022.
Okay, great. I think we all like that process. Appreciate being able to provide some input, and then staff can evaluate and bring back their potential list of projects. So I think it's all good. We're not endorsing these particular projects. We want to see the whole slate when Public Works comes back a little bit later. So any other discussion? If not, then should we move on to the next agenda item? Okay, so we're now to the former item 8A, Parks and Rec. The official title, Parks Inventory and Condition Assessment. Mr. Go, welcome back.
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the City Council. I do not have a presentation as this item was a consent item, just received report. In 2020, the Recreation Board created their goals. One of their goals was to formalize a parks assessment condition report. They divvied up the parks amongst the 5 members of the Recreation Board, and they went out and evaluated the assets and the condition of those assets within the parks. Over the last year, they fine-tuned the report, discussed it, and then not so much adopted it, but approved it and asked city staff to bring it forward to the City Council. Just for your knowledge that they have completed this. This is a wonderful report that they've done. This is going to be extremely helpful for staff and City Council as we do dive into CIP for future years, and we can really have an evaluation and assessments that are, and we can know what's needed for our parks. This is good work that the Recreation Board did, and I'd like to commend them on that good work. So I just wanted to bring this forward to the City Council tonight. And again, it is just received the report. Thank you very much.
Do we have any members of the public wishing to comment?
I do not see any hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
Council comments? Councilmember Emilio, and then Councilmember McAdams.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, because I was in the beginning as the liaison to the Parks Rec, Commissioner Charlie Gibson was the one who was the one that was the backbone of this report, and I want to compliment him also. So, along with the whole recreation, but he was the backbone originally.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. I pulled this item because I wanted to offer some gratitude and praise to everyone involved in getting this inventory and list together. It's quite extensive. I was very excited. I actually learned about a lot of the parks that I wasn't familiar with, didn't know that they had names. And, you know, I really appreciate the work that went into this. I wanted to make sure though, so underneath the options, and perhaps Director Go can help me with this question, there were lots of options, and I wanted to make sure, even though it says receive report, that we're not missing an opportunity here for direction. I wasn't sure the reason of all of the options, and it does appear that we have funded some of the options with the action earlier in the meeting, but I wanted to make sure that there wasn't an opportunity that we're missing, or if there was something that staff was was wanting some direction on.
Councilmember Adams, through the mayor. Initially, this item was going to be brought forth at your November 17th city council meeting, but it was postponed due to agenda that was very full. So I was going to lay those options out prior to the ARPA fund item coming forward, but then it got put onto the same meeting. So that was the premise behind the options.
Got it. Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything that staff was wanting direction on or additional funding. So I appreciate you clearing that up. And again, thank you so much for all of this work and to the rec board. This is a very helpful inventory, and I'm sure that Public Works and residents will be referencing it for years to come. So thank you.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll just add that, you know, this is a really great report, and I'm very proud of the rec board and all the work they've done. And it's been a while that it's been being finalized and finally presented. So pulling it was actually a really great gesture, because now we can talk about it a little bit more and highlight it, even though it is 9:53. But it's much appreciated. And, you know, for future, what the rec board is working on is this is kind of a guiding document to help them. I keep calling it rack and stack, but to organize is that maybe a better way to say some recommendations for CIP, for ARPA money, for projects. And some of the ideas are, you know, you can categorize everything on in these parks as what's ADA, and, you know, what would it cost us to bring every park within ADA compliance, you know, or what is, you know, landscaping oriented, and then could we do all the landscaping improvements, or another approach of let me just pick a park, and then we put forward, you know, 5 or 6 things at a particular park and kind of focus on one park at a time. And so they're having those discussions, and this is a really great document to be able to have in place in order to organize the ideas and then bring them forward. So we would love more community involvement, council involvement, and looking through this document, it becomes, I think, not easy, but it becomes a lot more easy to organize where parks can get worked on next. So yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think this assessment really helps prioritize the parks and the improvements that we can make to them. As a suggestion to Director Go, perhaps this assessment could be placed on the city's park directory webpage. That also is a very nice resource, by the way, for that has a nice listing of all the city's parks. But yeah, I think this is some good work, and it's going to be useful. Councilmember Tomlinson mentioned pick a park. We discussed that a few years ago, prior to me being on council, but at a council workshop where council would say, okay, this is the park we're going to be focusing on. And this kind of assessment helps prioritize that selection and helps create a kind of a roadmap on what needs to be done. So I think this, I'd like to see this assessment placed on the city's webpage under the directory, the parks directory, so that the public will have ready access to it. And thanks for all the great work.
I'll be sending a thank you note to the Recreation Board for this terrific report and their efforts. And thanks to our Public Works for picking up on it right away and bringing forth those budget items. So this report didn't get just stuck on the shelf. It's being acted on. So thanks to everybody involved with this. Anything else on this particular item? This brings us then, this is the last agenda item. Brings us to the end of our agenda. Thank you very much, everybody, public, staff, council, for being here tonight, participating. Much appreciated. Good night, everyone. Meeting
All day
adjourned.
parade of lights tomorrow.